Ray, stop jumping around. You're gonna make everyone sick.
I'm gonna kill my camera for this.
I disappeared again.
You disappeared.
Your dogs.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm looking at a screen that says Zoom and nothing else.
We can see you just fine. Can you see us?
No,
Is it possible you clicked out of this window? Because you can still hear us, right?
yeah,
We're there on your screen somewhere. I think maybe are we underneath another window?
I don't think so. It says post attendee Zoom.
There you go. Now we see him.
Do you have your screen minimized? Because when I minimize my screen, I
No.
can only see 12 players instead of 13.
Now
No,
he's off
should I?
again.
No, I literally can see nobody. Should I go out and come in again?
It couldn't hurt.
Okay, bye.
So we can't start without the narrator. So everyone has a break until he comes back.
I can still,
Hey, Jay, do you want to introduce or
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely introduce.
I'm
Are we
here.
live? Because I'd like to share before we start introducing.
Yes, I'm just getting that link for everybody and I will share it to the chat here. Oh, there it is.
It's counting down. It's counting down in the group.
Great.
Yeah.
And everyone, when I introduce you, give a one-line sentence about who you are, and then we'll move on to the next person. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for all the costumes and everything.
Like our character name or like our actual name?
Your actual name.
Right.
You can just,
Okay.
I just put the link to the live stream in the chat for everyone, and I will also go post it on our event page.
Yay.
Cool.
I'm gonna post that
All right,
now.
I'm going to share that.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to send you the link.
All right, let me share real quick.
Oop, oop.
Add a post. Join us now for evil. ... It's not an exclamation point.
All right, let me. Okay, cool.
I like how you were singing the title.
Feels so much better when you sing about it, don't you think?
So this is, what you just posted is the connection our friends can use.
Yes.
KJ, do you want us to turn our video off until you like say our names?
No, I think it's fine to have everybody on.
Okay.
All right, I'm just gonna post this and then I will start with the intros. So
Okay.
That works. Can you share it for me?
Oh, no.
All right. Oh, sorry, Ray, I'm coming. There we go. All right.
all right, do we have everybody?
Yeah, I'm still not getting my camera, so unfortunately.
All right, just a moment. Let me see if I can do anything to force your camera to start.
I've been trying everything at this end. It's crazy.
And then I'm going to start your video again and see if that does anything. More. Ask video.
And KJ, just to
No.
verify, we're shutting our cameras off until we speak, correct?
So she said we can
Right.
go on.
Yeah, until
When
you
we
capture
start.
enters the scene. But everyone leave your cameras on right now. I'm going to introduce you. Then I'll tell you cameras off, and we'll start with our narrator.
Wait a minute, I'm not even on.
You are on.
Strange
Just
question
keep
for
in
you.
mind.
You're not using your video in any other programs, are you?
No, I'm not.
Hmm.
There we go. I'm back. I probably need more light, but that's okay.
I have too much light. Can't dim it.
How are we going to get him on this screen?
This is really upsetting.
I know.
Sorry.
Hmm.
I don't know.
you had problems with your camera once before too?
Who, me? Or
Ray
that?
Bidelli, yeah.
If it's a built-in
Yes.
last ditch attempt, can you restart your computer and come back?
Let me try that. Thank you.
Let's see if resetting the camera on your computer does the trick.
Are we live now?
We are
We're
live.
live.
Yeah,
So
everyone.
Ray, while you're doing that, I'm going to start introducing everybody, and then
Thank you.
I think that'll be good.
And if not, at least I have audio. You won't see my great costume.
Oh, get the camera working. All right. So hello, everyone who's watching. My name is KJ Trainer or Killarney Trainer. We are here to do a live dramatic reading of Evil Under the Sun, which is a story by Agatha Christie. And it was written, the script was written by Anthony Schaefer. I think I'm saying that right, but I'm not really sure. The person who is responsible for this really is George McTire, who's playing our Hercule Poirot. Say hi, George.
Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to our reading.
George is an actor, an opera singer, and a whole bunch of other things. He's also Saint Nick on occasion, right?
It's a secret.
He's a helper.
All right. So, and playing our Lena Marshall, our unfortunate victim, and also running tech is Adri Neefus. Am I saying that right?
I go long A, but you know what? I don't really care.
Oh, okay.
Adriana, Arlena.
Say hi to her and watch carefully because she's not going to be on screen very often, unfortunately. All right. And then on the other side of me, we have Julia. Tell me how you pronounce your last name.
Gritzback.
Gritzback. She's playing Linda Marshall. Say hi and let us know who you are.
Hey everyone, my name's Julia Gritzback. I'm playing Linda. I'm an actor, singer, and a writer, soon to be author. So enjoy.
All right. And then playing our Mrs. Gardner is Patrick Hurd. Patrick?
Good evening, all. I am Patrick Outen Hurd. I am an actor. I am a director, and I am a Mrs. Santa Claus.
We're in really good company. All right. And right next to her on my screen is Adam Griswold, who is a film director as well. Say hi, Adam. Let everyone know who you are.
Hello, I'm Adam Griswold. I'm an actor, writer, director of films.
And he's playing our Horace Blatt. He's going to make everyone laugh. So.
Hopefully.
All right. Next in line is Herb playing Kenneth Marshall. Herb, would you say hello to everyone?
Hi, everybody. I'm Herb Fuchs. I'm an actor and an instructor, and I'm playing Captain Kenneth Marshall tonight. Hope you all enjoy it.
All right. And next to him on my screen, anyway, is Ellie Escobar, who's playing Miss Agnes Brewster.
I am Ellie Escobar, and I'm an actress, and I'm a teacher as well. When I'm not acting, I'm teaching, and I also write. And I am so grateful to be here with you guys.
All right. Next to her is Hank Savin playing our narrator, possibly the most important person here tonight. This show won't happen without him. Hank, say hi to everyone. Let them know who you are.
Hello, world. Yeah, I'm Hank Savin. I'm an actor. I'm a storyteller, actually, a professional type. And I'm supposedly retired, but got to do things.
That's true. All right. And right under him is the gentleman who's playing my husband, Patrick Redfern. Say hi, Sean Murray. Tell everyone who you are.
Hello, I'm Sean Murray. I'm an actor, I'm a director, founder of a small touring theater company based in Wallingford, Connecticut. I really enjoy the craft. I really miss people. And I gotta say, George, you look fantastic as Poirot.
Oh, thank you. I don't look like a mortician. I feel
Oh,
like
you do? Oh, absolutely, you do. Sorry. But yeah, you look great.
It's been so long since I put on a suit. I am wearing pants.
I wouldn't doubt it, man.
Well, there goes the myth.
All right. And next to Sean is, everyone's got different names, so I'm looking at the names instead. It's Bob Taranjo. He's playing Odell Gardner. Say hi, Bob. Tell everyone who you are.
Hi, I'm Bob Taranjo playing Odell Gardner, as Killarney said, and I'm a retired postal worker, now full-time stage and screen actor and producer, and really looking forward to entertaining you tonight.
All right. And next to him is Louise Cornetta, who's playing Daphne Castle, who was played by Maggie Smith in the movie, and she I think you blow Maggie Smith away. So tell everyone who you are.
Thank you. That was very flattering. Louise Cornetta, I am so excited during this COVID year to be able to do things like this Facebook Live table reading. Daphne's a fun character who you'll find out more about in a few minutes. I'm an actor. I do a lot of work with the Actors Gym in Hamden under Reno Venturi. So I am just thrilled that George has been putting this on, and KJ did an amazing job organizing this one. So can't wait to see Whodunnit.
All right, and playing Colonel Race is my brother Terry Trainer. Terry, say hi to the people. Let them know who you are.
Hello, my name is Terry Trainer. I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober for at least.
He's actually not an alcoholic.
I play Colonel Race. I am a filmmaker, and I am a director and writer, and I host a talk show.
Yeah. So, and you can check that out Wednesday nights, 7 o'clock, early late night live show here on Facebook. And last but certainly not least is Ray Baldelli, who's here, and we can see him in his awesome outfit. Yay! Ray is playing 3 people. He's playing our executive, he's playing Boatman Bill, and he's playing our sergeant. Ray, say hi to everyone. Let them know who you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ray Baldelli. I've been acting since I turned 40, and basically lots of summer Shakespeare with Elm Shakespeare and Bridgeport Free Shakespeare.
All right. So that's our cast. We're looking forward to this script. It's really funny. We hope you like it too. So I think we can just get started. All right. So cameras off, everyone. And Hank, take it away whenever you're ready.
Evil Under the Sun, a screenplay based on the novel by Agatha Christie, by Anthony Schaefer, edited by Killarney Trainer. Interior, Office of the Trojan Insurance Company, day. A senior executive of the Trojan Insurance Company sits at his desk reading some papers. There's a knock at the door, and he looks up eagerly as a young female secretary comes in.
Hercules Parrott, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning,
The secretary withdraws as Hercule Poirot enters. He carries a folder of papers. The executive rises and indicates a chair on the other side of the desk.
Good morning, Mr. Poirot. Please take a seat.
Bonjour, monsieur.
He sits in the proffered seat as the executive regains his own chair.
Well, I hope you have some good news for me.
Alas, no. I regret that I can find nothing in these reports to justify my reinvestigating this case for you. It is all perfectly clear from the police reports. I know Miss Alice Kerrigan insured her life with your company in her husband's favor, and that he was the only person with a motive for killing her. But when it comes down to the copper box, he could not have possibly done so. Clearly, on the evidence, the lady was murdered between 4 o'clock and 4:15 when the body was found at Marley Cox. From 2 o'clock to 4:20, Mr. Edward Corrigan was seen by at least half a dozen people to be on the train coming up from London. And the railway station was a good 15-minute walk from Marley Cox. No, it is, parbleu, one of those rare cases when the insurance company must, as you say, laugh and lump it.
Well, if that's your view, Mr. Poirot, then I suppose we'll have to do just that. I must say I'm not surprised. The evidence is most conclusive. Still, I had
Pour miracle? Alas, it is not possible. As is most often the case in les affaires criminelles, the facts are exactly as they appear to be, and I wish you a good day, monsieur.
Poirot rises, bows, and departs, leaving the folder of papers on the table. Exterior, aerial view of Smuggler's Island, late afternoon. An establishing shot of Smuggler's Island basking in the late afternoon sun. A rowing boat is approaching the island with 4 figures in it. We track in towards the nautical windows of the bar of the Jolly Roger Hotel. The interior, the bar of the Jolly Roger Hotel. Late afternoon. Daphne Castle, a flamboyant 40-ish ex-courtesan, now proprietress of the Jolly Roger Hotel, stands in the bar, straightening her hair and generally putting the finishing touches to her appearance. It is about 5 o'clock on a summer's evening. She looks out of the bottle glass windows down at the strip of water which separates the island from the mainland. She sees the rowing boat approaching and smiles with satisfaction. Exterior, rowing boat, late afternoon. Bill the boatman is rowing 3 guests across from the mainland. He is a typical salt. In the boat are Mr. and Mrs. Odell Gardner, an American couple from New York. She is large with blue rinsed hair and diamante spectacles worn on a chain. He is thin, tall, slightly stooped and legalistic, with a scrawny neck topped by a turtle-shaped head. The last occupant of the boat is Miss Agnes Brewster, an athletic, middle-aged spinster who cloaks her vulnerability under a gruff manner.
Ah, Smuggler's Island. My, doesn't it look romantic? I could just see Warner Baxter and Alyssa landing in a movie set here. But can't you, Odell?
Yes, dear.
It would have to be something like the kidnapping of a sheik's daughter by a brigand of the sea. Oriental pride yields to piratical kisses in a duel of male might and female charm, an exotic drama of love's sublime cruelty.
I believe they've already used those particular phrases to describe the motion picture In Her Arms, dear, though I believe on that occasion they were Parisian kisses to which the Oriental pride yielded.
Well, never mind about that, Odell. In the Jolly Roger Hotel, it would damn well yield to a pirate's bosses. We're Myra and Odell Gardner, by the way, from New York City.
How do you do? I'm Agnes Brewster. I hope you're enjoying your holiday.
It's been just great. We've been doing England.
And have you done it?
Oh, certainly. Canterbury Cathedral, the Crown Jewels, Lord's Croquet Ground, though those gentlemen weren't playing the day we were there. You know, that whole box of tricks. But enough is enough. Last week, I said to Mr. Kelso at Cook's, sightseeing is all very well, but I want now to get to some quiet spot in the Mediterranean and just relax. Mind you, I said not just anywhere. Oh, no, no, no. It had to be sanitary. A cousin of Odell's went to a place in Wales last year where they only had an earth closet. Isn't that right, Odell?
2 earth closets, I think it was, dear. One of the guests and one for the servants. Mind you, I believe it was very picturesque.
Picturesque or not, you think at least they'd have been able to provide the paying customers with a water closet. You British, you sometimes take this old world charm to quite ludicrous heights.
It's just that we don't believe in pampering ourselves. That's all. It's my belief that all the central heating you have in America saps the energy of the nation. Aside from being extremely bad for the complexion, it encourages acne in the young and creates in the not so young. Come on, bookman. Dig those oars in, pull with all your will.
Bill gives her a sour look and rows even more lethargically than he has been doing. Exterior, the terrace of the Jolly Roger Hotel, late afternoon. Daphne Castle stands on the terrace of the Jolly Roger Hotel, welcoming Mr. and Mrs. Gardner and Miss Brewster. In the background, 2 servants struggle to carry the luggage up steps from the tiny harbor to the hotel.
I am Daphne Capital. Let me welcome you to Smuggler's Island. I do hope you'll be most comfortable here.
I think Mr. and Mrs. Gardner are a little concerned about earth closets.
Earth closets? What can you possibly mean, Miss Brewster?
Perhaps I should explain that my wife is somewhat suspicious of lavatorial systems which are not indigenous to the United States of America, Mrs. Castle.
I'm sure you will find all the loos here perfectly, Mrs. Gardner. We even have bidets in all the bathrooms. If you will please follow me.
I tend to believe that bidets are un-American. Still, I suppose we'll have to put up with them.
The Gardners follow the others toward the hotel. Exterior, rowing boat, late afternoon. Bill rows his boat toward Smuggler's Island. It contains Mr. Blatt, a jolly, coarse, life and soul of the party, self-made man, and Patrick Redfern and his wife, Christine Redfern. He is a good-looking, young, fresh Irishman, fair-haired and athletic. She is fair-skinned, pleasant-looking in a somewhat washed-out way. They are sitting in a reserved silence. Mr. Blatt inevitably decides to start the whole ball rolling.
Well. Might as well break the ice. Blatt's the name, Horace Blatt. B for mutton, L for leather, aphorism, T for two twice. Got it?
I'm Patrick Redfern, and this is my wife, Christine.
I'm Mick.
Well, I come from Dublin, actually, but I haven't been back for years.
I say. How do you make an Irishman burn his ear?
Ring him up when he's ironing. It wasn't very funny when I heard it 5 years ago.
Mr. Blatt, crushed, looks away towards the island. Interior, hotel corridor and view of bedrooms. Evening. The two servants are putting the luggage in the allocated bedrooms. We track down a long corridor following Daphne Castle to see through open doors that Mr. and Mrs. Gardner, Miss Brewster, and Mr. Horace Blatt have already established themselves in their rooms. Unpacking has started, and we hear the sound of baths being run. She approaches the Redferns' room. Interior, Mr. and Mrs. Redfern's bedroom. Evening. Mr. and Mrs. Redfern are starting to unpack. One of the servants is just retiring through the open door as Daphne Castle appears in it.
Mr. and Mrs. Redfern?
Yes?
I'm Daphne Castle, the pirate chief. Welcome to Smuggler's Island.
Thank you. It all looks marvelous. I'm sure we'll have a nice time here.
Well, a bit naughty too, I hope.
Naughty?
Well, what are hotels for if one can't do a bit of flirting and get a bit pussy boots?
Quite right.
Yes, when fate cast me up on here in this old rock, I said to myself, people are going to have fun in a crazy old English atmosphere, even though it's in the Med. So you'll find the servants are all English and properly trained, and there's lots of games to play. And of course, there's great grub.
Now we're talking. Most English hotels fall down in that department. Cold mutton and cabinet pudding are not my idea of holiday nourishment.
I don't think you'll find that either dish features on a darling Andrea's menu. Let's face it, he is almost the greatest saucier in the Aegean. I say almost because he does have a slight hysterical hand with the creme fraiche, but it is a fault on the right side. See you for cocktails around 7.
She breezes out.
Funny lady.
He takes a robe and swimming trunks from his suitcase and goes into the bathroom.
What do you think she meant by fate casting her up on this old rock?
Oh, don't you know the story? She used to be mistress to King Zog of Albania. And when he married, he gave her this island.
Provided she kept away, I suppose. Generous fellow.
Wise fellows. Wives don't much like girlfriends hanging around the place. Or didn't you know that either?
Patrick Redfern walks into the room, wearing only a swimming costume and carrying his robe. We note his fine physique. There's a moment of tension between them.
Yes, I had noticed. Hello.
He leaves the room jauntily. Christine looks after him speculatively, then moves to the window to look out. Her face hardens at what she sees. Exterior, the small harbor, evening. We see the harbor from Christine Redfern's point of view. The rowing boat is just being made fast by Bill. In it are Captain Kenneth Marshall, a well-groomed, slightly stern man of about 45 years old, and his wife, Arlena Marshall, a tall, stunning redhead of about 30 years old, and his daughter, her stepdaughter, Linda Marshall, a gauche, unformed, unhappy girl of 15 or so. Exterior, the jetty in the harbor, evening. The Marshalls step ashore. At the same moment, Patrick Redfern passes them on a path which leads down to the hotel beach. He stops when he catches sight of Arlena, his face registering surprised delight. Then his gaze travels uneasily to her husband and back again to Arlena.
Hey, hello, Arlena.
Oh, darling, fancy meeting you here of all places. What an astounding coincidence.
By St. Patrick himself and all the snakes in Ireland, it is that.
Do you know my husband, Kenneth?
Hello there. How do you do?
Patrick and I met in London at the Gordons a couple of weeks ago. You remember, I told you about it, Ken. They had that marvelous Josephine Baker singing there. C'est ce que j'aimerais, c'est fou ce que j'ai pour t'aimer, c'est que j'ai pour t'aimer d'amour. This is my stepdaughter, Linda. Stop standing there all pink and sticky like a half-eaten marshmallow and say good evening to Mr. Redfern.
Good evening.
Good evening, Linda.
There is an awkward moment of tension.
Well, I'll be taking myself off to have my dip. See you all later.
Arlena Marshall looks after him appreciatively as he walks off down towards the beach. Her husband and stepdaughter regard her with somewhat less than the same pleasure. The camera pans round and tracks in towards Christine Redfern's window to see her still standing at it, looking down. Exterior, rowing boat, evening. Bill rows his boat raggedly towards the island. In the stern sits Hercule Poirot in acute distress.
Ma foi, why don't you row this boat more calmly?
Oh, bless you, sir. It's calmer than a cup of tea today.
I have never found anything calming about the cup of tea. It is simply a device used by the English to underscore tension.
Well, you ought to see it some days. Waves like roller coasters.
Interior, Sun Lounge, evening. In the glassed-in Sun Lounge, Daphne Castle's cocktail party is in full swing. Mr. and Mrs. Gardner are talking to Mr. and Mrs. Redfern and Miss Brewster. Kenneth Marshall and his daughter are talking to each other. Daphne Castle and a couple of maids, Gladys Norcott and Betty Trumbull, are moving anxiously through the room, serving canapes and drinks. In the general chatter of conversation, we pass close by Horace Blatt telling Poirot a dirty joke.
You see, this fella comes running down the hospital corridor, holding his privates, pursued by the nurse carrying a boil of boiling water. And following them, there's the doctor yelling, "No, nurse, what I said was prick his boil."
Mr. Black collapses into gales of laughter and moves away. The camera tracks into a close-up of a baffled Poirot as he is joined by Daphne Castle and Betty Trumbull holding a tray of drinks.
How about a cocktail, Monsieur Poirot?
What would you suggest, madame?
A white lady, a sidecar, a main brace, a between the sheets, a king zog.
And what might be in that one, madame?
Mostly 151% Bacardi and a Rojo rum. It'll grow hair on your eyeballs.
I do not believe that my eyes need to be that guarded, madame. But if you have a little crème de cassis or perhaps a sirop de fraise, I would be most content.
Sounds a bit soppy to me, but I'll see what I can do.
Merci, madame.
A maid offers Poirot something from a tray of canapes.
Meanwhile, how about a rainbow's end or a nice Birmingham smile? They're both très morosque, you know, very Moorish.
Poirot takes one. Daphne Castle's attention is distracted by Mr. and Mrs. Redfern, who are in animated conversation with the gardeners. And with a bright, backwards-looking smile at Poirot, she swoops down on them.
Ah, Mr. Redfern, what did I tell you? Everybody enjoys themselves here. It's not called the Jolly Roger for nothing, even though the name might be said to be more appropriate to an amusing brothel.
Behind her, Poirot bites into his canapé. Cream crab spurts out over the lapel of his jacket. The camera moves with Daphne Castle as she joins Kenneth and Linda Marshall. In the background, Poirot dabs ruefully at his clothing with a handkerchief and unashamedly listens.
By Jove, Daphne, you've been successful since we last met. How long ago is it?
It must be a good 17 years, and Linda certainly wasn't born. As a matter of fact, I don't think you'd even married your first wife then.
No, I don't think I had. Poor Mary, she had such an unhappy life, but let's not talk about her. Let's talk about you. You're rich and famous. Everybody's heard of this crazy hotel of yours. It's always in the glossies.
Poor and infamous, you mean? Seriously, you shouldn't believe everything you hear, Kenneth. I'm not that much changed from the daft Daphne you used to know at Shipley.
Were you at Shipley? Daddy's told me so much about it.
Yes, we were neighbors for years. Do you remember the day we took Toby down to the river to get water rats? And you pushed me in my best dress.
Absolutely. And you flew into the most frightful rage and half choked me to death.
Me? It's impossible. The only attack I've ever made on anyone was when I threw my spaghetti alla vongole on Mussolini for trying to grope me under the table in the Vatican.
What rot. You used to fly into the most fearful rages in those days. We all had to watch our P's and Q's. Ah, here comes Arlena.
Elena Marshall enters the room. She is dramatically attired and gorgeous to look at. Conversation ceases on the instant as all eyes turn toward her. Patrick Redfern takes a few steps in her direction, his arms outstretched, and we freeze the picture. Exterior, the terrace above the bathing beach, morning. Hercule Poirot, arrayed in a white duck suit, lies in a deck chair, surveying the sunlit scene below. Sunbathing on the beach are Mr. and Mrs. Redfern, the latter in the shade of an umbrella. Horace Blatt, Kenneth Marshall, and Linda Marshall, and Mr. and Mrs. Gardner. Daphne Castle is swimming. Miss Brewster sits beside Poirot on the terrace.
I understand you are a very distinguished detective, Monsieur Poirot.
Have been felicitous enough to have told me that I might have some slight skill in that matter, madame.
I do hope we're not going to have any bodies on Smuggler's Island.
Let me assure you, madame, I am simply here to spend the holiday. I do not even think of crime. And yet, as to bodies, what are they? Regard them lying there out on the rolls like corpses in the morgue. They are not men and women. There is nothing personal about them. They are just bodies, like butcher's meat on slabs, chunks of flesh grilling in the sun. When I was young, one barely even saw the anklet.
I must say, though, that I think the things we wear nowadays are much more sensible. The air must be allowed to circulate freely around the body. A healthy mind in a healthy body. That's my motto. And I keep mine healthy rowing.
Poirot looks down self-consciously at his expansive paunch. Miss Brewster notices.
You'll soon have that off if you rode, Monsieur Poirot.
Mademoiselle, I detest boats. I have the mal de mer. Even my bath sea give me sickness.
On the beach, we see Christine Redfern get up from under her umbrella and start to walk up the steps toward the hotel. Patrick Redfern goes down the beach to swim. The camera zooms in for a moment to isolate him as he plunges in and starts to swim using a powerful coral rope.
How unfortunate. I suppose it's a bit like heights. Some people can't stand them. I'm not very good myself, but Mrs. Redfern is far worse. Why, only this morning on the cliff path above Killhole Caves, she turned giddy and simply clung to me, quite unable to move.
Christine Redfern comes up to the group, her skin noticeably very white.
Hello, dear. We were just talking about you.
Wonder my ears weren't burning. Everywhere else does, unfortunately.
You don't like the sunbathing, madame?
I only wish I could, but I don't go brown. I just become like a cassetta. Pink skin, white blisters, and green in the face. Isn't it blissful here? So tranquil, so far away from all trouble and violence.
It is true the sky is blue and the sun shines, but you forget, madame, everywhere there is evil under the sun.
Arlene Marshall walks down from the hotel to the beach, passing the group. She is very suntanned and wears a backless white bathing suit. On her head, she wears a fantastic Chinese hat of jade green cardboard. She moves with superb assurance, and the whole effect is rather like a stage entrance.
Ah, Madame Marshall. What was her stage name?
Arlena Stewart.
Ah, yes. I saw her in Come and Go a couple of years ago at the Alhambra. Was très charmant. Did you ever see her, mademoiselle?
I was employed by her once, and she's not charmant, Monsieur Perrot. Believe me, she's poisonously rotten through and through.
Is that possible, mademoiselle?
Yes, I was her secretary for over 5 years. I tell you, she can be a remorseless fiend. She wants everything for herself. She'll give nothing to anybody else, no references, no help, and she'll use any device to prevent you telling the truth about her.
Elena Marshall has reached the beach and stands irresolute, looking about her. Patrick Redfern swims back to the beach with powerful, flamboyant strokes, as if drawn towards her by a magnet.
What you say is truly shocking, mademoiselle. Don't you think so, Madame Redfern?
Christine Redfern gets to her feet and waves to her husband. In the distance, we see him pause, then ignore the wave and deliberately walk off with Arlena Marshall down the beach. Abruptly, Christine Redfern turns and leaves the terrace, heading back towards the hotel.
I think I should go for my road now.
Miss Brewster rises and walks off the terrace in the direction of the small harbor. Slowly, Poirot shakes his head.
May we? Undoubtedly, there is the smell of evil here.
Poirot struggles out of the deck chair and strolls down the steps toward the beach. Exterior, Booty Beach, morning. Daphne Castle comes out of the sea. Her bathing suit is outstandingly chic. Her gaze is alternating between Kenneth Marshall, who is lying next to his daughter on the sand, taking the sun, and Arlena Marshall and Patrick Redfern, who are sitting and talking farther down the beach as Poirot strolls up to her.
Good morning, mademoiselle. Charming costume.
I thank you, Monsieur Perrault.
The bathing costume can be so unflattering, n'est-ce pas?
It is my opinion that 98% of all the people in this world should never put one on.
Mrs. Marshall, of course, being one of the remaining 2%.
Obviously. It's one of a couple of activities she does to perfection.
The other being?
Adultery.
So you think your old friend of 17 years ago has made the mistake of marrying her, eh?
Mistake? It's a silver-plated, copper-bottom, gilt-edged disaster. Still, it probably suits him. He always was a collector of lame ducks.
She doesn't look much like the Le Canard Boteau to me.
Oh, you don't understand. He married his first wife simply because no one else would have her. And when she died, he up and married that shop-worn piece of fluff when she was jilted by Lord Coddington after being cited in his divorce.
Well, perhaps, mademoiselle, she makes him the good wife.
Good wives, as they say in Italy, do not grow horns on their husbands' heads. Why, only last year that randy old fool, Sir George Barry, left her every penny of his money, about £100,000 by all account, enough to keep her in a single chin for life. And I tell you, she didn't get that for her racing tips. Now it looks as if she's got her claws into Patrick Redfern, and that poor wife of his hasn't the faintest idea of how to remove them. It's a pity, really. But in the end, I suppose all ladies have to learn to defend what they want. Don't you agree, Monsieur Perrault?
He smiles at Poirot mischievously and walks off along the beach to join Kenneth Marshall. Poirot looks after her thoughtfully. He sees Linda Marshall get up and run down the beach towards where Patrick Redfern and Arlena Marshall are talking. Slowly, he walks in the same direction. Mr. Blatt comes splashing up from the sea in a loud striped bathing suit, which makes him look like a corpulent wasp, and intercepts Poirot.
Good morning, Monsieur P. I see they won't get you in the briny in a hurry.
No, I have never cared for La Mer.
Well, I suppose you can't teach an old frog new tricks, eh?
An old frog? What can this mean?
Frog. Froggy. You know, Frenchman.
I am not old, and I am not a Frenchman.
Eh?
Monsieur, I am a Belgian.
I beg pardon, all the same. I thought they were vieux haricots.
Pardon?
Vieux haricots. Old bean. Get it? Care to join me for a pre-lunch livener?
Appétit. Une bonne idée.
Before turning back towards the hotel, Poirot looks down the beach to where Linda has joined her stepmother and Patrick Redfern about 30 yards away. The camera zooms in to join them.
What the hell are you doing here, Linda? Did your father send you to play goose, berry, chaperone, or spy?
I thought I'd just come for a chat, Arlena. I don't seem to be having any fun.
Well, why don't you go back to the hotel, darling, and write out 500 times, "I must try not to look so abysmally dowdy." And if you take your own advice, you might just get to have some.
Linda flees awkwardly away down the beach towards where Mr. Poirot and Mr. Black are starting their walk towards the swimming pool bar. She is sobbing and cursing under her breath.
Really? That girl runs like a diseased dromedary.
Linda passes Poirot and Mr. Blatt. We hear distinctly what she is saying.
The bitch. I could kill her. I could kill her.
Poirot shakes his head at Mr. Blatt, who looks away in embarrassment. They continue their walk towards the bar as the camera pans off them to where Daphne Castle is sitting on the beach talking to Kenneth Marshall.
I know it's none of my business, but if I may presume an old friendship, I'd like to ask you, why do you put up with her?
Who?
Arlena, of course. She does make you look a bit of a cheapy booze.
I suppose she does. Still, I can cope with it.
Do you think Linda can?
What do you mean?
Well, she's always on that child, bitching the hell out of her.
Yes, it's a pity about that. Linda's like her mother. She takes things hard.
Then why not do something about it?
Like what, for instance?
Like fixing up a divorce, for instance. People do it all the time. With most of my friends, it's almost a full-time occupation.
Not with me. I don't approve of easy divorce. Arlena is my wife, and that's all there is to it.
Till death do you part?
Exactly.
I see.
Exterior, the sea near the beach. Morning. Mr. and Mrs. Gardner are on a pedal float. Mrs. Gardner does the talking while Mr. Gardner does the pedaling. They pass the spot on the beach where Arlena Marshall is talking to Patrick Redfern. As they go, Arlena takes Patrick's arm and walks him down the beach, carefully keeping the hand which tickles his neck screened from her husband.
Look at that. Still up to her old trick. She hasn't changed a bit. She's man mad. How much was it she cost us?
$50,000.
Oh, and lawyer fees. Don't forget the lawyer's fees. How much did we end up paying Kleinfeld, Klavitz, and Stummerhoffen?
Another 10, I guess.
Exactly. Making 60 in all. I could wring her neck.
He spits violently into the water. Exterior, beach, morning. Patrick Redfern and Arlena Marshall walk up to where Kenneth Marshall and Daphne Castle sit together on the beach. Patrick Redfern waves his hand awkwardly and continues walking on toward the hotel. Kenneth Marshall rises and draws Arlena a little apart from Daphne Castle.
You were very keen that we came here. Now I know why.
Oh, really?
Yes, you knew that Redfern fellow was coming here, didn't you? All that baloney when we arrived about coincidence?
Darling, I swear to you, it was the greatest possible surprise. You could have knocked me down with an orchid.
Well, I just might knock him down, and it won't be with anything frail or fancy either.
Oh, darling, you're so impetuous. You know I don't care for anyone but you.
You know, I often think, Arlena, that other people are right and that I'd be much better without you.
Darling, what are you saying?
I'm saying that you behave unkindly towards my daughter and that you do me no credit whatsoever.
She tosses her head and turns away from him to busy herself with applying suntan lotion. Exterior, swimming pool bar, midday. Poirot and Mr. Blatt are in the swimming pool. Blatt drinks a pint of beer. Poirot holds a tiny, green, sticky aperitif. In the background, Patrick Redfern passes by and goes into the hotel.
Tell me straight, monsieur. What's a famous sleuth like you doing in a place like this?
Simply, I repose myself. I take les vacances.
Suppose it was a stupid question, really. You wouldn't tell me even if you were down here on a job, would you now?
Possibly not, but I assure you it is not the case. And as for you, I could ask you the same question. I wouldn't have thought these people here were your tasse de vete.
You're right there. Bloody standoffish, a lot of them. Yeah, frankly, I came here because it sounded romantic and, well, a bit daft. The Jolly Roger Hotel, Smuggler's Island, set in the Medi. Always had a thing about pirates ever since I was a boy sailing off the Cornish coast. As a matter of fact, I've hired a little yawl to do a spot of it here. Perhaps you'd care to come for a spin this afternoon?
Oh, thank you, but no. I prefer the terra firma. I wish I could oblige, but there it is.
Talking of wishing, I'll tell you the one about the bloke at the wishing rail in Ireland. He's a bit upset, you see, because sitting next to him is a titchy little piano player about a foot high playing the old Joanna for all it's worth. And he's saying, no, damn it, I did not wish for a 12-inch pianist.
Well, I wish I understood the English idiom better.
Another snort?
No, merci. I shall put myself in order for lunch.
Poirot gives Mr. Blatt a small bow and walks off towards the hotel. We track into a close-up of Mr. Blatt's florid face, eyes narrow speculatively. Exterior, path to the side of the hotel, midday. Poirot is walking along the path by the side of the hotel. He stops to listen as raised voices float out from a first-floor bedroom window.
I tell you, you're infatuated with her, Pat. That's why you insisted on coming to this place, because you knew she'd be here.
What absolute rot! I hadn't the faintest idea.
Don't lie. Whatever you do, don't lie to me.
Interior, the Redfern's bedroom, midday. Patrick Redfern is facing his wife, Christine. Both of them are standing near the open window.
Look here, Christine. It's not like you to be jealous. Can I speak to a pretty woman without you jumping at the conclusion I'm having an affair with her?
Well, aren't you?
Of course not. Arlene and I are just friends. That's all.
Oh, I don't believe you. Look, she's a bad lot, Pat. She'll do you harm. I know it. Oh, please give it up. Let's go away from here.
No, I absolutely refuse. Here we are, and here we stay. If you don't like it, you can...
Yes?
Nothing. Just stop being so blood jealous.
He stamps out of the room, banging the door behind him.
Damn bitch. I could murder her.
Exterior, path at the side of the hotel, midday. Poirot, realizing that the conversation has terminated, continues on his way, sadly shaking his head. A montage of evening activities in the lounge. Linda Marshall reads a book. The gardeners play mahjong with Daphne Castle, Miss Brewster. Next, we glimpse Mr. Blatt and Kenneth Marshall playing billiards. Poirot watches these activities and then makes his way out of the hotel into the night. Exterior, a cliff path which leads to an arbor above Bible Bay. Night. Poirot makes his way along a moonlit path which leads to an arbor situated above Bible Bay. There are marvelous views of the quiet, silvered sea lapping an old stone fisherman's chapel. Bell on top of it strikes 11.
The gentle moon, the lesser light, the lover's lamp, the swan's delight, a ruined world, a globe burnt out, a corpse upon the road of night.
Is anyone there?
Poirot makes his way over to the arbor, which is constructed of flowered trellis. Christine Redfern sits on a stone bench gazing out over the sea. Poirot enters.
Forgive me if I startled you, madame. I was walking to the moon.
Oh, the moon. I suppose everyone does that.
Everyone is a moon, madame, and has a dark side which is never shown to anybody.
Everyone except me, I think. I wish I could be so secretive and not show what I feel.
Sometimes for ladies, that is difficult.
Do you know what I'm most sick of in this place?
What, madame?
Pity. I can't bear to be pity. Everyone around here is so sorry for me. I can tell from the way they look at me. Poor little thing, they're saying. What she has to put up with from that fool of a husband at first.
Will you allow me to tell you something, madame? The Elena Stewarts of this world do not count. Their domination is of the moment. Really to count, a woman must have either goodness or brains.
You can't actually believe that men care for either of those things, can you?
Yes, I do. Your husband loves you, madame. I know it.
You can't know it.
But I do. I've seen him looking at you. For Hercule Poirot, such an oyard is enough.
Christine Redfern breaks down and weeps on Poirot's shoulder. After a while, the weeping subsides.
It's all right. I'm better now. Please leave me. I'd rather be alone.
Poirot rises from the seat he has taken during her breakdown, offers her his bandana, which she gratefully accepts, bows, and retires. Exterior, path leading from Bible Bay to the hotel, night. Poirot walks thoughtfully along the path which leads from Bible Bay to the hotel. Suddenly, he hears the sound of voices coming from behind some bushes. Cautiously, he steps aside to peer through. In a little clearing screened from the path by trees, Arlena Marshall and Patrick Redfern stand close together. The latter's voice is loud and clear.
Arlena, darling, you know I'm mad for you, don't you? I'm quite loop the loop.
Of course you have, darling. And I adore you too. My mad Irish.
She holds out her arms to him, and they come together, embracing passionately. Poirot, grimacing with embarrassment, hurries away towards the hotel.
Quel vaste luxe.
The elongated shadows of the entwined lovers writhe on the moonlit grass. Exterior, the hotel, night. As Poirot nears the hotel, he sees Kenneth Marshall standing outside it, staring fixedly up at the sky.
Good evening, Monsieur Poirot. What a lovely night. Not a breath of wind anywhere.
The calm before the storm, perhaps? Bonne nuit.
He enters the hotel and closes the door behind him. We move into a close-up of Kenneth Marshall's face to see it suffused with bitterness and rage. He drives his bald fist into the palm of the other hand, making a sharp, violent sound in the still night. Exterior, the harbor, morning. Mr. Blatt, whistling a cheerful hornpipe, is making ready to cast himself off in a small yawl. He does so, raises the sails, and moves out of the harbor in a southwesterly direction. Exterior, outside staircase, the hotel, morning. Linda Marshall climbs the outside staircase. She wears a bathing costume. Interior, hotel corridor, morning. Linda Marshall steps into the corridor and runs down it. She opens her bedroom door. Interior, Linda Marshall's bedroom, morning. Linda comes into her bedroom. Inside, Christine Redford stands awkwardly. Linda Marshall is startled.
Well, there you are.
Yes, or I thought I'd have an early dip.
Good idea. In fact, I came to ask you whether you'd like to come with me to Cutlass Cove this morning.
Yes, I love to.
Good. I'm playing tennis at 12:15, so we better start fairly early. 10:30 suit you?
I'll be ready. Meet you in the hall after breakfast.
The door closes behind Christine Redford. Linda Marshall looks after her, puzzled. Interior, dining room, morning. The camera pans lovingly over a large selection of silver chafing dishes kept warm on a series of hot plates on the sideboard. We then cut away to see Daphne Castle looking disapprovingly at Linda Marshall, who is listlessly finishing her meager breakfast of coffee and toast.
You know, you really are naughty, Linda. Andrea goes to all the trouble of preparing a decent English breakfast instead of those weedy continental affairs, and all you eat is toast.
I'm sorry, I'm not hungry.
Let me at least tempt you to Oof's Jolly Rogers.
What's that?
Castle removes the cover from a dish and exhibits it.
It's Andrea's lunatic idea of pirate gastronomy. Plover's eggs served in a sheep's skull with a crossed marrow bones. Jolly tasty.
I just couldn't, really.
Daphne Castle puts her arms around Linda Marshall.
What's the matter? Is it Arlena?
She's so beastly.
You don't want to worry about her. Things have a habit of working out. I promise you.
Yes, if you make them.
Exterior, the terrace outside the hotel. Morning. Hercule Poirot sits at a table under a beach umbrella, drinking a cup of coffee and eating a croissant loaded with mountainous quantities of strawberry jam. Daphne Castle crosses from the hotel and heads off in a westerly direction towards Lighthouse Ledge. Christine Redford and Linda Marshall set off in a northeasterly direction toward Cutlass Cove. After a moment, Poirot himself rises and moves off in a southwesterly direction towards Booty Beach. Exterior, Booty Beach, morning. Booty Beach is empty, save for Arlena Marshall, who is trying to launch a float. She is dressed in the same white bathing suit and green cardboard Chinese hat as the day previously. Poirot appears and stands watching her.
Do you require assistance, madame?
Oh, Monsieur Poirot, would you? I'm afraid it's too heavy for me.
Poirot walks down to the water's edge, but stops when he realizes he is wearing white suede shoes. Gingerly, he removes them and puts them carefully with his socks, several feet beyond the tide mark. He then meticulously rolls up his trousers to the knees and walks into the sea. The float is successfully launched, and Arlena Marshall, holding her paddle, jumps on it.
Thank you so much, Monsieur Poirot. Please, don't tell anyone where I'm going. Everyone will keep following me about, so...
Everyone, madame?
Yeah. Perhaps some people more than others, but I just want to be alone.
With a bright and confiding smile on her face, Arlena Marshall paddles away to the northwards.
Ah, ça jamais. That I do not believe. She is not the Mademoiselle Garbo, that one. It is quite clear whom she is going to meet.
He turns and retraces his steps towards the beach. His white suede shoes float out to meet him.
Sacre bleu, the suede is ruined.
Poirot wades ashore, mopping unhappily at his shoes. Arlena Marshall's float rounds the point and disappears. A further surprise greets Poirot as Patrick Redfern strolls down from the direction of the hotel.
Top of the morning to you. You seem to have given your shoes a bath.
Alas, it is not so.
You know, you want to use a wire brush on those things. Salt water does them no good at all.
Poirot scowls. After a moment, Redfern's mood changes, and he starts to look about him, very obviously puzzled and impatient. Kenneth Marshall now approaches from the direction of the hotel. Redfern eyes him apprehensively, but Marshall ignores him.
Morning, Monsieur Poirot. Seen my wife about?
Has Madame then risen so early?
She's not in her room. I think I'll take my dip right away. I've got a lot of typing to do this morning. Can't abide it, but it's got to be done.
You are perhaps an author?
Oh, what, me? Good gracious, no. Perish the thought. No, they're business letters. I sometimes think one would have a better holiday if one took one secretary with one.
I wouldn't have thought that was such an original thought, old boy.
No, I dare say you wouldn't.
Marshall takes off his robe and puts it on the sand next to Poirot's ruined shoes.
Hello, hello, hello. Been taking your shoes for a swim?
An unfortunate wave.
Kenneth Marshall saunters off down to the sea. Behind Poirot, we see and hear Mr. and Mrs. Gardner walking towards us. Patrick Redfern looks up eagerly, but is obviously disappointed.
And where is Madame Redfern this morning?
Who? Oh, I don't know. I think she's going off sketching somewhere.
Good morning, Mr. Redfern. Good morning, Monsieur Poirot. Have you been paddling and forgotten to take your shoes off?
Very droll, Madame.
You know, a friend of ours did something like that once in Miami. Do you remember Eileen Schoenblaritz, Odell? Her old man gave her a watch for their wedding anniversary that must have cost a couple arms and a leg, and she went into the water with it. When she came out, she found, of course, that it wasn't working. Do you remember what she said? The damn thing stopped at 11 diamonds past 3 rubies.
I thought it was in the morning, dear. She said 3 rupees past 11 diamonds.
It was in the afternoon, Odell, and it was 11 diamonds past 3 rubies.
I'm sure you're right, dear.
Kenneth Marshall walks back up the beach, having finished his swim.
Hi there, Captain Marshall. Where's Linda this morning?
Linda, I don't know. mooning about the island somewhere, I expect.
You know, that girl looks kind of peaky to me. You ought to give her some of that virile. They say anemic girls need it. I've seen it on the Hardings.
Linda's all right. Excuse me. I've got some work to do, and it's got a bit late.
Kenneth Marshall walks away up the beach towards the hotel.
If you want my opinion, it's that stepmother of hers that's doing her no good. We knew an only child once whose father married again, didn't we, Odell? Remember Gloria Schuster? She grew hair all over her bosoms.
We hear someone approaching. Patrick Redfern looks up hopefully and down again sulkily. As we see, it is Miss Brewster. He rises abruptly and begins to pace on the beach.
Morning, all.
Hi there. Good morning.
Bonjour, madame.
What have you been up to, Monsieur Perrot? Been trying to walk on the water?
I leave that performance to our Savior, madame. My own miracles, if such they can be described, come more from the exercise of the little gray cells. And you, madame, have you had your swim this morning?
Oh, yes, I had one about 10 o'clock. In fact, I was lucky to survive. Somebody chucked a bottle out of one of the hotel windows. It nearly brained me.
What a dangerous thing to do. Odell, do you remember the Angelover kid who got a concussion right there in Midtown Manhattan from a can of toothpaste falling right on his head?
Are you sure it wasn't Terlic, dear? I had the distinct impression that little Dutch girl in the can came into it somewhere.
Toothpaste.
Concussion, you say? From a toothpaste tin? That does seem rather difficult to believe.
It fell from the 45th floor.
Well, where's Mrs. Marshall this morning?
I haven't seen her, but I believe Mr. Redfern looks mighty put out.
Yes, he does. But it's Captain Marshall I really feel sorry for. He's such a quiet man, always so composed, but I'll bet he's actually seething inside.
The camera joins Patrick Redfern, now some distance away from the group. He saunters around, aiming vicious swipes at limpets and crabs with a piece of driftwood he has picked up. Occasionally, he looks up in the direction of the hotel, then falls again to abusing the marine creatures. Back in the group, Miss Brewster gets to her feet.
Well, I'm going for my road now.
And as for me, I shall return to the hotel to change my shoes. It is not agreeable to be seen in this condition.
Poirot bows to the company and trudges away, holding his wet shoes delicately in his hand. Miss Brewster walks along the beach, passing Patrick Redfern.
Are you taking your boat out?
Yes.
Mind if I join you?
Delighted.
Let's row right round the island.
Have we got the time? Oh, yes, it's not 11:30 yet. Come on.
They walk in the direction of the harbor. Exterior, the harbor and sea. Morning. The boat emerges from the harbor with Patrick Redfern rowing with strong, powerful strokes. Miss Brewster in the stern regards him with approval.
Good. Let's see how long you can keep that up for.
She waves to Mr. and Mrs. Gardner as they pass the spot on the beach where they are sitting. They wave back. Then the boat passes round the point and they are lost to sight. Patrick Redfern rows the boat past Lighthouse Ledge. He scans the shoreline anxiously. The boat's progress slows.
Here, come on. Buck up. You're slacking.
To be sure, they've had you in charge of the galleys in the old days.
He digs the oars in and the boat shoots forward. Exterior, sea, Blood Bay. midday. The boat rounds the next point and Blood Bay comes into view. Distinctly, we hear a chapel bell ringing 12 o'clock. It is quite a small cove, and the beach above the waterline is shadowed by a huge overhanging cliff. A float is drawn up on the beach. A figure of a woman, her face covered by a large green cardboard Chinese hat, lies sprawled out on the sand in the shaded part.
Hello? Who's that in Blood Bay?
You know it's Arlena Marshall as well as I do. You've been looking for her all morning.
He grins sheepishly and alters course inshore.
What are you doing? We don't want to land here.
Oh, be a sport. It'll only be for a minute.
Patrick Redfern jumps out and runs up the beach, shouting and waving.
Arlena! Hi there, Arlena!
He reaches the figure and kneels down beside it.
Hey, wake up.
Close up to see the bronzed limbs, the white bathing suit, the red hair curling out from under the brim of the green Chinese hat. Patrick Redfern touches one of the bronzed arms, then pulls his hand away as if stung. From Miss Brewster's point of view, we see him lift the hat off the face.
My God.
What's the matter?
She's dead. She's been murdered. Strangled.
He drops the hat back to cover the face and runs back down the beach to Miss Brewster, still sitting in the boat.
Are you sure? How horrible.
Who could have done this? It's just not possible. My God, if I get the hands on the fiend who did this.
Well, you don't suppose he's still hanging about you?
I hope so.
We must get the police. Perhaps one of us ought to stay with the body.
Don't worry, I'll stay.
Oh, thank you. I'll be as quick as I can. I'll go in the boat. Can't face that ladder.
He points to an iron ladder which is clamped to the cliffside and which leads to the top. Miss Brewster rows off around the point. Interior, Daphne Castle's office in the hotel, day. In her chaotic office in the hotel, Daphne Castle is phoning the mainland. In the doorway hover Poirot and Miss Brewster.
Listen, Zoggy, sorry to use the private number. I know Queenie is a jealous cat and makes life hell for you, but we've had a murder. Yes, a murder. Fortunately, I've got the best detective in the world here. Hercule Poirot. Even you must have heard of him.
He flashes a smile at Poirot, who preens himself before turning back to the phone and lowering her voice.
He's a finicky little bugger, but simply a colossal brain. He says we must have a doctor to establish time of death and all that. Have you got one you can spare? Oh, excellent. And please, Zoggy, can't you keep it quiet? You know how peculiar people are about a spot of murder. The scandal will zap my hotel, and I'm sure Monsieur Poirot will solve it in a jiffy. Well, I'm positive that he can solve it in 48 hours.
Mon Dieu.
Your Majesty, you are without a doubt the spiffiest chum any girl could have. Bye.
He hangs up and turns to face Poirot and Miss Brewster.
It's all fixed. He's sending a policeman, a doctor, and some British detective that's hanging around on a goodwill exchange. Maybe you know him, Colonel Race?
Interior, the Residence Lounge, hotel. Afternoon. Poirot is alone in the lounge when Colonel Race enters, carrying a notebook and beaming at Poirot. They are old friends. Race is a proper Englishman of good background, well thought of, intelligent, but not brilliant.
It is absolutely extraordinary finding you here, Poirot. Wherever there's a juicy murder, you seem to pop up like a jackrabbit.
I could say the same thing about you, cher Colonel, but it is not too indiscreet of me. I may inquire, what are you doing visiting Leroy Zog?
Well, dope branding, if you must know. There's a chap I've been after for years using a dozen aliases. I've had a strong tip-off. He's around here at the moment. Still, you better get on with this lot. Looks like a very tricky business.
It is true that most people here would have murdered Madame Marshall avec le grand plaisir. But do not worry, mon vieux. The order and method of Hercule Poirot will triumph in the end. She was strangled, of course.
Naturally, you already know that. Yes, she was strangled by someone with large hands. She was discovered at noon, and the doctor reckons she was killed no more than an hour before that.
Bon. Now, I suppose you will want to start by finding out who was the last person to see Madame Marshall alive.
Yes, I've always found that to be the most suspicious.
Parbleu. In this case, I think you will find that that person is me.
You?
May we? Apart, of course, from the murderer. I helped her push her float out from Booty Beach about 10:40 this morning. She asked me not to tell anyone where she was going.
Why?
She said she wanted to be alone.
From what I hear, that's not a desire she expressed too frequently.
My own opinion, exactly. But who then did she go to meet?
At any event, she would have arrived there shortly after 11 o'clock, the earliest time Dr. Musso gave her for death.
Exactement.
So we can assume that she was murdered there and not transported there after she was killed, which I suppose limits our suspects to those people on the island, since anyone coming over from the mainland would have been seen.
And no one was.
Not so far as we're able to find out.
Then let us begin with the husband. For if no other reason than the matrimonial causes provide the motive for the majority of female murders.
Interior, Kenneth Marshall's bedroom, afternoon. Marshall sits in an armchair facing Grace, while Poirot wanders around the room, picking up and putting down objects. Standing against one of the walls is a desk with papers and a typewriter on it.
So, that is why we thought we would start our inquiries with you, Captain Marshall. A callous reason, but sensible. I'm sure you will agree. After all, you are of a very good old-fashioned motive, jealousy.
Jealousy?
Come, sir. It is a matter of common knowledge here that your wife and Mr. Redfern were on terms of the greatest intimacy.
I do not listen to little tittle-tattle, Inspector. My wife is dead and cannot defend herself.
I'm not asking her to defend herself. If I'm asking anybody, I'm asking you. Were you jealous?
Many men have admired my wife, Colonel. If I was the type of man who would kill for jealousy, I would have killed her years ago.
It has been my experience that all men are the type of men who would kill for jealousy. You, monsieur, must be tout à fait exceptionnel. Mes félicitations.
Kenneth Marshall shrugs with irritation and turns away from Poirot to Race.
Have you any questions to ask?
Well, I would like an account of your movements this morning between 11 and 12 o'clock.
I was here typing until I changed to play tennis a few minutes after 12 o'clock.
He rises and crosses to the desk, from which he picks up 3 letters.
Here they are. If you put one of your men to type these, you will find he won't be able to do it in much under an hour. What? Where is my damn pipe?
He hands the letters to Race and then pats his pockets for his pipe. Finding them empty, he goes to search for it. Is a random manner amongst his tobacco pouch, matches, and cleaners on the desk. He fails to find it and gives up.
What is there to show that you could have been not? What is there to show that they could have not been typed at some other time? Say last night, for example.
Page, please.
44. Today is the 25th.
It would appear so.
Today is the 25th. As you will see, these letters are post-dated in answer to this one from my broker, posted in London. the 23rd, and arriving here on this morning's post at about 10:30. As I was down on a booty booth with you, Monsieur Perrault, a little after 10:45, you'll see clearly that I must have typed them when I said I did.
It would appear so.
Well, if you're still not satisfied, then why not ask the chambermaid if she heard the machine going? She was moving about the corridor some of the time doing other rooms.
Thank you, Captain Marshall. We'll do that. Now, can you tell us what you did after you finished typing?
As I said, I went to play tennis. The date was 12:15.
Whom did you play with?
Mrs. Castle, Mr. Gardner, and Mrs. Redfern.
And was everyone there on time?
No, I was the first to arrive. Then Mrs. Castle joined us.
Flashback. Exterior, tennis court. Okay. Kenneth Marshall is taking the tennis balls out of their box and knocking them over the net. Daphne Castle arrives.
Hello, Ken.
I don't suppose you've seen anything of Arlena this morning, have you? I haven't seen her since breakfast.
I saw her on a float earlier this morning. I think she's up at the north end of the island somewhere.
Well, was she with anyone?
No, she was alone, though she was probably... Oh, Ken, it's not right for you to let her torture you this way.
Oh, don't be silly, Daphne. You do exaggerate everything. So, Arlena may be a bit of a flirt, but she knows where to draw the line.
The only thing Arlena's drawn is under a column of figures.
Drop it, will you?
Interior, Kenneth Marshall's bedroom, afternoon. Poirot, Race, and Kenneth Marshall are grouped as they were before the flashback.
Did Mrs. Castle seem quite normal?
What do you mean?
I mean, did she look agitated or flushed or excited in any way?
No, I don't think so. She looked her usual self.
And who was the next to arrive?
Mr. Gardner. He must have been about 5 or 6 minutes late.
Flashback. Exterior, tennis court, midday. Kenneth Marshall and Daphne Castle as before.
Drop it, will you? Here's Gardner.
Hi there.
Hello. Had a good morning?
Sure, great.
How about a knock-up?
A knock-up.
Yes, you know, a spot of practice before till Mrs. Redfern comes.
Oh, you should know that in my country, a knock-up means something totally different.
Oh, really? Surely you can't mean Jolly Rogering.
Interior, Kenneth Marshall's bedroom, afternoon. Poirot, Race, and Kenneth Marshall are grouped as before.
And how did Mr. Gardner look?
As he always does, like a sober, uptight, henpecked New York attorney.
I see. Tell me, how much later was it before Mrs. Redfern arrived?
I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes. She said she'd been over at Cutlass Cove and forgotten the time.
Flashback. Exterior, tennis court, midday. Kenneth Marshall, Daphne Castle, and Mr. Gardner as before. Christine Redfern hurries onto the court.
Sorry I'm late. I was sketching over at Cutlass Cove and I lost track of the time.
Don't worry about it. Come and play with me.
Interior, Kenneth Marshall's bedroom, afternoon. Poirot, Race, and Kenneth Marshall are grouped as before.
And to save you the question, she did not look agitated, flushed, or excited in any way, though of course she had been hurrying.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
Just 2 things, monsieur. Firstly, will these letters show your investments to been profitable?
No. I'm afraid they will reveal that I sustained some substantial losses recently.
Secondly, is it true that your wife had quite a lot of money of her own?
She inherited some money recently, yes.
Did she leave a will?
Yes. All right, I succeed to her property, but I didn't kill her, if that's what you think. I did not kill her. Understand?
Linda Marshall comes rushing in.
Oh, Daddy, what are they doing to you?
It's all right, my darling. It's just a few questions.
But you didn't kill Arlena. I know you didn't.
Perhaps we should have a little talk, Linda, and leave your father to himself for a while.
Interior, Linda Marshall's bedroom, afternoon. Grace stands. Poirot is in a rocking chair. Linda Marshall sits on the end of her bed.
Sorry to have to put you through this, Linda, but we have to find out everything that might be useful, and that means talking to everyone. Understand?
Linda Marshall joins her large, bony hands together and twists them nervously.
Yes.
Good. Then just tell us what you did this morning after you got up.
I went for an early swim before breakfast. Then I went to Cutlass Cove with Miss Redfern.
And what time did you go?
We had a date to meet in the hall at 10:30. I thought I was going to be late, but it was all right. I asked Daphne to come with us, but she was busy.
And how long did it take you to get there, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. 10 minutes? A bit more, maybe. We weren't in any particular hurry.
And what did you do when you get there?
I sunbathed and Miss Redfern sat in the shade sketching. She doesn't like the sun, you know. She gets blisters.
Flashback. Exterior, path leading to Cutlass Cove. Morning. Linda Marshall and Christine Redford walk across the island toward Cutlass Cove. The angle favors Linda Marshall and her eye line. Christine Redford and Linda Marshall arrive on top of Cutlass Cove and start to descend the path to the beach. They reach the beach. Christine Redford sets up her easel in the shade provided by the overhanging cliff and starts to sketch the cliffs. She does not remove her beach pajamas. Linda Marshall takes off her beach wrap and watch, oils herself, and lies down in the sun to sunbathe.
Oof, over Augustus John.
Oh, isn't he the one who's always driving his wife crazy by having the most tremendous affairs with all his pupils? Oops, sorry.
It's all right.
Then what happened?
Well, nothing much. We drawed away and then time simply flew by.
It is much later. The sun has moved over to the west, and the shadow stretches deeper away from Christine Redfern towards the sea. As the shadow touches her, Linda Marshall rises.
What time is it?
12 o'clock.
Oh, Lord, I must fly. I'm playing tennis at 12:15.
Okay, I'll have a swim before I come back.
Don't forget your bathing cap.
Linda Marshall retraces her steps, puts on her bathing cap, and runs off down to the sea.
See you later.
The camera travels down to the sea with Linda Marshall. From the sea, we look back up the beach to see Christine Redfern moving quickly up the path to the cliff top. From the top, she waves to Linda Marshall, who waves back. Interior, Linda Marshall's bedroom, afternoon. Grace, Poirot, and Linda Marshall as before.
And what time was it when all that happened?
12 o'clock. She certainly cut it fine for her tennis date.
Poirot moves over to look at her watch. It reads 3:30. He takes out his own half hunter from his waistcoat pocket and compares it. It too reads 3:30.
Mademoiselle, did you love your stepmother?
My father did, so I tried to for his sake.
But it was not easy, was it?
She was not my mother.
And she came between your father and yourself?
Yes.
En fait, ma petite, you hated her. That's the truth, n'est-ce pas? She was always humiliating you in public. You wanted her out of your family. You could cheerfully have wished her dead.
Poirot!
It's true. I did. Many, many times, just like I'm sure Miss Redfern did. Because her husband was in love with her. She was always on to me, taunting me, making me look foolish and childish. She was so cruel, so cruel.
Poirot stares at her, not moving, giving her time to collect herself. Grace makes to go and comfort her, but Poirot stops him.
But anyway, wishing someone dead isn't the same thing as doing it, is it?
No, mademoiselle, it is not the same all the time. One is a pleasurable fantasy. The other takes strength and purpose. It takes the ability to contemplate calmly the bulging eyes, the blackening skin, the last gurgle of the exhaled breath.
Linda Marshall suddenly gets up and with a stifled cry runs from the room.
Did you have to be so rough on her, Poirot? I mean, she's only a kid.
I did not suggest anything to her that she has not already thought of in 100 times, and she does have an unusually strong pair of hands for a girl her age.
Well, all right, I'll accept that. What do you think about her father?
Le bon capitaine would be more prudent to cultivate an air of greater tristesse if he does not wish to be suspected of her death.
Perhaps you're right. Well, I'll get the sergeant to work on the typewriter alibi. See if he can do them in under an hour. Then we have a word with Valentino.
Exterior, swimming pool, afternoon. We watch Patrick Redfern executing ever higher and more elaborate dives into the swimming pool. Poirot and Race watch from a concealed place.
He doesn't look to me much like a man who has just lost his lady love.
You think he is celebrating? C'est possible.
Patrick Redfern does a final dive, swims to the pool's edge, and climbs out. Poirot and Race move out from their cover to confront him.
Good afternoon, Monsieur Redfern. Colonel Race here is of the opinion that vous avez un cœur léger.
And what might that mean?
That you are gay, light-hearted.
Light-hearted? If I didn't do something, I think I'd go off my chump. What's happened is so unbelievable.
Not in my experience, monsieur. I find it quite believable.
Obviously, you are more accustomed to murder than I am, Monsieur Poirot. You've probably seen quite a few in your time and learned how to behave.
Vraiment. And they have also given me many opportunities of observing how suspects behave. And I can assure you that very few of them have been blithe.
Poirot and Patrick Redfern glare at each other before the latter moves to put on his bathing robe and sit down at a poolside table.
Mr. Redfern, may I ask how long you've known Mrs. Marshall?
About 3 months. We met at a cocktail party in London.
And had you agreed to meet down here, or was it a mere coincidence?
No, I must admit it was not a coincidence. She asked me to come, and I suppose I couldn't resist. You see, I was infatuated with her. I'd have done any mortal thing she asked.
Ah, she was the eternal Circe, n'est-ce pas?
She turned men into swine, all right. You see, deep down, I know I love my wife.
Well, mon vieux, that does rather establish a motive for the murder, n'est-ce pas?
Motive? For me? Holy Mother of God, why should I have wanted her dead? I was crazy about her.
So you say, but it is possible she had become too importunate and was making it impossible for you to turn to the wife you love. Many women have been killed in this world for no other reason that they have become a nuisance.
I assure you, it wasn't like that at all. I could have taken off at any time I wanted to. Anyway, what are you saying? That it was me who killed her? You must know that I couldn't have possibly be the case. Wasn't I with yourself the whole time until I went on with Miss Brewster and found her lying dead?
So, monsieur, it is I who am to be your alibi?
Isn't it true?
Hélas, oui.
Well, there you are then.
Eh bien, whom do you think she had gone to meet at Blood Bay?
I really haven't the faintest idea.
How about your wife? She had a good motive for killing Madame Marshall.
What?
Absolument. La jalousie.
What nonsense. There's no violence in her. Besides, how could she have done it? She's never have to climb down that ladder to the beach. She'd know it for that sort of thing at all. And even if she could have, she was no match for Arlena. She'd have been the one to have been murdered. No, if it's jealousy you're after, I gotta go with Ken Marshall. He must be favorite now. Is that all?
For the moment, yes. But please hold yourself in readiness to reconstruct for us tomorrow morning your finding of Marlena Marshall's body with Mademoiselle Brewster.
Patrick Redfern walks away toward the hotel. Suddenly, there is a cracking of twigs in the bushes behind where the two men are sitting. In a flash, Race rises and parts them to discover Daphne Castle crouched down in position from where she has been able to overhear everything. She rises insistently and steps out, favoring both men with a radiant smile.
You're absolutely on the right track, Monsieur Perrault. Je sais la fin. She's the one with the best motive. Captain Marshall simply isn't the type.
So you have been eavesdropping, madame?
Now don't be tiresome, Monsieur Perrault. Everyone eavesdrops if they got any sense. As a detective, you must do it all the time.
Madame, I assure you that Hercule Poirot has no need.
And don't you believe all that guff about Arlena being the stronger. Women fight like tigers when they're losing their husbands. Not that I've had too much experience of that sort of thing myself. I mean, I tried everything to get rid of Johnny. Strychnine in the spuds, bolting to South America, but he clung on like a limpet. If the market crash in '29 hadn't given him a coronary, he'd be here now. Still, it showed where his heart was.
Merci, madame. We will heed your advice.
You do that. She probably battered her with a bit of driftwood or something, and then finished her off with a little pressure on the carotid artery, or whatever it's called. Everyone knows about all that. All the crime novels are full of it. In fact, an 11-year-old child did something like that only the other day in Hungary. Was it Crete? Anyway, I've got to see about dinner. Au revoir.
They watch in silence as she walks away toward the hotel.
Do you think she was serious about putting strychnine in her husband's food? I mean, if she killed once.
He could have killed Madame Marshall. C'est possible. She certainly has the motive.
Really? What might that be?
To become herself Madame Marshall.
Golf course. The fairway of the first hole. Afternoon. Christine Redfern is attempting to play golf. Her appalling lunge at the ball sends it perilously between Poirot and Race as they come into sight over a rise. They both duck nervously. Christine Redfern comes running across to them.
I'm terribly sorry. You're not hurt, are you?
Don't worry. No harm done.
I suppose I should have shouted 4 or something, but I forgot. As a matter of fact, I'm a complete duffer at this game. I only play to please Patrick.
Do not disturb yourself, madame. The redoubtable colonel, needless to say myself, have faced greater dangers in the course of our professional lives. He has learned le sang-froid. I have learned the stiff lip.
Have you come to interview me?
Just a few questions, but please do not arrange your game.
Well, what do you want to know?
Perhaps you could tell us something about how you spent this morning.
Well, first thing this morning, at about 8:30, I went into Linda Marshall's room to fix up with her to go to Cutlass Cove. You see, I wanted to do some sketching.
And she was up at that hour?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, she wasn't actually in her room when I arrived. She came in a few minutes later. She'd been for a dip.
And what time did you and Linda Marshall leave the hotel?
Oh, about 10:30.
And how long did it take you to walk to this cove?
Oh, I don't know, between 10 minutes and a quarter of an hour.
Christine Redfern takes a wild swing at the ball, missing it completely.
It was an absolutely spiffing morning, so we just ambled along, chattering away like a couple of magpies.
How did you spend your time at the cove?
I set up my easel and sketched some cliffs. Linda sunbathed.
And the two of you stayed like that? Neither of you moved?
Oh, that's right. It was just so peaceful there.
And what time did you leave?
It was 12 o'clock. It had suddenly got quite late, you see, and I had to hurry because I had a date to play tennis at 12:15. I had to change first.
You had your watch with you?
No, I asked Linda the time. Anyway, I packed up my sketching things as quickly as I could and went back to the hotel.
And Mademoiselle Linda?
She went into the sea.
Did she enter the water before you left the cove?
Oh, yes. I waved to her from the top of the cliff. Then I simply tore back to the hotel as fast as I could and changed into my tennis things. Then I went into the court where I met the others.
Who were,
Captain Marshall, Mrs. Castle, and Mr. Gardner. I played with Mr. Gardner. We had a couple of sets, then... Well, then we heard about Mrs. Marshall.
Madame, I must ask you, were you very surprised at the manner of Madame Marshall's death?
Well, of course, to be around when an actual murder is committed is so rare that, well, of course, it's surprising and shocking, but, well, I mean, I suppose she was the kind of woman.
To whom such a thing must happen? Yes, I find that quite significant.
Well, of course, well, I mean, to say it's true. I mean, after all, like, people like her are always mixed up with everything that's squalid and sordid. Blackmail, jealousy, violence, every kind of crude emotion.
Why, Madame, did you mention the word blackmail?
Oh, I don't know.
You were quite specific. To your knowledge, was Madame Marshall being blackmailed?
Yes, Monsieur Poirot, I'm afraid she was.
what?
Well, I didn't mean to overhear her, but I couldn't help it. It was yesterday afternoon. I was coming back from a walk along Mutiny Mile, and as I passed the cliff above Blood Bay, I heard voices coming up from the beach. Arlena Marshall was saying, "It's no use pressing me. I simply haven't got it to give you anymore. And as it is, my husband is getting suspicious." And then another voice, a man, said, "What rubbish, you'll pay up or I'll make things hot for you."
You'll pay up or I'll really make things hot for you.
That's what he said.
Parbleu, he must have been listening to too many blackmailers.
Well, I'm sorry you think it's a cliche, Monsieur Poirot, but those are the words he used.
Did you recognize his voice?
No, he was keeping it low, but it was gruff and a bit hoarse.
And that's all you heard?
Yes, I'm afraid I walked in rather quickly. It's a bit embarrassing, you see.
Yes, I can quite see that. Thank you, Mrs. Redfern. We'll follow it up.
He smiles weakly at them and hacks furiously at her ball. Turf flies through the air as Poirot and Race beat a retreat.
Now we are getting somewhere.
You think so?
Well, it does explain Mrs. Marshall's seemingly inexplicable behavior this morning, doesn't it? Blood Bay is an ideal spot for a rendezvous with this fellow who's blackmailing her. It's accessible only by water or a ladder steep enough to deter most people, and a great part of it is invisible from above.
As you say, it is an ideal spot for a rendezvous. But explain to me this, mon cher. Why is it not the pitiless and ardent blackmailer who lies dead, but his victim? This is not indeed killing loi qui dispose des œufs d'or. The goose that lays the golden egg, mon ami.
Race regards Poirot with surprise. He is obviously impressed by Poirot's point. Exterior, the croquet lawn, afternoon. Mr. and Mrs. Gardner are playing croquet. Once again, from a concealed position, Poirot and Race stand watching. Mrs. Gardner whacks her husband's ball so that it goes scudding away into the bushes.
Now, Odell, I get another turn for hitting you, and I get another one for going through the hoop.
He knocks her ball towards the next hoop. Mr. Gardner trudges off to retrieve his ball. It's a good shot, which puts it near her own which puts it near his wife's ball. She whacks it away in another direction, but by doing so, puts her own out of position to get through the hoop. As her husband's back is turned while he goes to retrieve his own ball, she quite blatantly cheats, moving her ball so that she can easily maneuver it through the hoop. She does this, then whacks it joyfully up toward the finishing post. Mr. Gardner looks on in a defeated way from the bushes where the ball is.
I thought we agreed one had to go through the hoop at the top again before finishing, dear.
You are quite in error, Odell. We agreed to no such thing. Come along. I'll give you one more game.
Poirot and Race approach Mrs. Gardner. Her husband has quite a long walk back from the bushes to join them.
Hello there, Monsieur Poirot. How goes the investigation?
It marches, madame, it marches. Let me introduce you to my colleague, Colonel Race, Mr. and Mrs. Gardner.
How do you do?
My, you British bobbies are all so charming and sympathetic. I remember a lost bracelet once at the Savoy. We thought it had been stolen, and a delightful young officer came and found it in a vase of roses. Must have fallen from my wrist when I was watering them. I thought he'd been mad as hell for wasting his time and all, but not a bit of it.
It wasn't a vase of roses, honey. It was a jardiniere in the fireplace.
It was a vase of roses, Odell. Red, long-stemmed roses that Hattie Heimenheimer had sent to me. Surely you remember how she and Betty Bomowitz had sobbed all the way through Carol Lombard in Lady by Choice. Men who love her grew sadder but wiser.
My recollection is that they brought us arum lilies and that it was Joan Bennett in While Paris Sleeps that they sobbed through. Don't you remember? While Paris sleeps, lovers, wantons, and wastrels are awake.
For the last time, Odell, it was a goddamned vase of red
Mrs. Gardner, I'm
roses.
sorry to interrupt you, but could you please give me your attention?
What? Yes, of course.
Thank you. I would like an account of your movements between 11 and 12 o'clock.
Well, now, let me see. Odell and I were on Booty Beach the whole time, I guess. Weren't we, Monsieur Poirot? You remember you were there.
Alas, madame, the statement is not quite true. I took my departure from the beach a little before 11:30, as did Mademoiselle Brewster and Mr. Redfern. That left the two of you alone.
Oh, yes. Gee, I guess it does. Still, you can't really think that Odell and I had anything to do with the death of that unfortunate woman. Monsieur Poirot, now, can you?
We have to investigate everyone here, madame, I'm afraid.
But neither Odell or I would hurt a fly.
We are not talking about Les Mouches, madame. Had either one of you met Madame Marshall before you came here?
No, never.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we had.
There seems to be a slight difference of opinion here.
Well, to tell the truth, we invested in a musical comedy she did in the States last year. We met her then.
Huh. Was it a successful show?
Hell no, but it had a kind of appropriate name. Gold Diggers of 1934. You see, it could have been successful, but she left it after a few weeks to go off with some margarine king, and it folded.
And as a result of which you lost your money?
I'll say we did.
How much?
$60,000.
So you bore Madame Marshall a grudge?
Well, wouldn't you have? But not enough to bump her off. Well, that's crazy talk.
I hope for your sake it is, madame. For you see, you would have had all the time in the world to go by Blood Bay between 11:30 and 12 o'clock and bump her off. Am I not right?
Well, utter nonsense. I was with Odell on the beach during that time, wasn't I?
Yeah.
You did not go to play tennis? Monsieur Marshall and Madame Redfern said that you did.
Well, yeah, that's right.
What time was that, sir?
The date was for 12:15.
But you had to change first, surely?
Yeah, that's true. I guess I left the beach about 20 of... there are some curious rock formations on the path back to the hotel, which I wanted to examine at leisure.
I think it was later than that, Odell. About 10 minutes later, at least.
No, dear, I don't think so. The time was about 20 of 12, I'm pretty sure.
Did you see anybody on your way back to the hotel?
No, sir. I saw no one either on the path or in the hotel. I went straight to my room and changed. However, while I was changing, I did see from my window Mrs. Redfern hurry into the hotel from the direction of Cutlass Cove.
What sort of time would that have been?
I reckon about 10 after 12 or a little later.
Huh. And who was there when you arrived?
Captain Marshall and Mrs. Castle.
Did you notice anything at the place about either of them?
Out of place?
A taut sense of manner and a natural excitement?
Yeah, both of them were animated, but I wouldn't say unnaturally so.
Could you tell me how much later than you was Mrs. Redfern in arriving at the court?
Well, let me see. I was about 5 minutes late, and she was approximately 10 minutes or so after me. I'd say it was around 12:30 when she got there.
And that's all you can tell us?
I'm afraid so. It wasn't until after the game that we heard of the tragedy.
I see.
Au revoir, then, Madame, Monsieur. Enjoy passing through the little oops.
So, you had to tell him all about the money we lost, huh? That wasn't very smart of you, Odell. Not very smart at all.
I'm sorry, dear. It just sort of slipped out.
Slipped out? It sort of gushed out, like the damn Niagara Falls. And why did you have to go and tell them that you left the beach at 20 of 12?
Well, I didn't want to lie now, honey, did I? They always find out these things, you know.
Baloney. Don't you realize that neither of us have an alibi now? You are a bloody old fool, Odell. Sometimes you make me so mad I could... Oh, hell.
She strikes her croquet ball. You see her large hands gripping the top of the mallet as if strangling it. Exterior, the harbor, afternoon. Miss Brewster's large hands grasp the oars of a rowboat. We see her taking them out of their rowlocks, putting them inboard and leaping out of the boat onto the harbor jetty, where she makes it fast to a bollard. Sitting on two other bollards are Poirot and Race. As Miss Brewster gets back in the boat to tidy it and bail out surplus water, they rise and walk over to her.
Mademoiselle, I would like to hear some more about the incident of the bottle which nearly hit you this morning.
Oh, that. Well, it must have been about 10:15, and I was taking a dip on the hotel beach when suddenly this bottle came whizzing out of the blue and smacked down in the water next to me.
Monsieur Poirot.
Oh. Well, did you happen to notice what kind of bottle it was or from what window it was thrown?
I'm afraid not. It sank too quickly for that. And when I looked up at the hotel, I couldn't see much because the sun was in my eyes.
Very curious. Now, madame, I would like to know what you did between finishing your bathe and coming down to the beach.
Oh, I don't know. I went back to my room, changed out of my wet costume, did physical jerks, read the newspaper. Is it important?
Parbleu, it is of the very greatest importance. You must see that during this time it would have been quite possible for you to have gone over to Blood Bay, waited for Madame Marshall to arrive there shortly before 11 o'clock, killed her, and then to have returned in time to join us at about 11:30 at Booty Beach.
You mean climb up down that cliff ladder? You must be loopy if you think I could do that with my head for heights.
I'm afraid we have only your word for that unfortunate malady, mademoiselle.
Well, why should I want to? Just answer me that.
No, you answer me that, s'il vous plaît.
I had no reason.
But that is not the complete truth. You have already told me that you were employed as Arlena Marshall's secretary for over 5 years and that she gave you nothing. No references, no help. And in fact, she used every device in her power to prevent you from telling the truth about her. What I wonder, could you have meant by that?
Brewster climbs out of the boat onto the jetty to confront Burrow.
Monsieur Perrault, I have my skills as a secretary, but as you may have noticed, I am not a pretty girl from Pittman's College who finds it easy to get a job anywhere at 3 or 4 pounds a week. So after I was dismissed, I wrote an account of my life with Mrs. Marshall. I called it The Secret Life of Arlena Stewart by her personal secretary, with the subtitle, The Actress Who Lived Up to the Reputation She Couldn't Live Down. Believe it or not, I got immediate and generous offers to publish both here and in America. But she stopped me.
How, mademoiselle?
Well, you see, without realizing it, I had signed a contract of employment, one clause of which prevented me from publishing anything about my former employer whilst she was alive.
And now that she is dead, mademoiselle, you can go ahead, n'est-ce pas?
Well, I suppose put like that, yes. But I assure you, I don't know anything about her death. Nothing at all. And you must believe that, Monsieur Perrault. You must.
Calm yourself, mademoiselle. You are not the only person here with a motive for choking Madame Marshall to death. Good afternoon.
He gives her his little bow. She gives him another scared look and then blunders away up the jetty.
Did you see her hands, Perrault? They were absolutely enormous.
Vraiment, cher Colonel, never have I seen so many women in one place with hands that Jim Braddock himself would like to own. It is most strange.
Exterior, Hotel Terrace, afternoon. A large pair of hands pound a typewriter. We see the sergeant hard at work on Kenneth Marshall's letters. Daphne Castle stands looking over his shoulder, reading what he has typed. Poirot and Race walk across the terrace toward them.
Well, how's it going, Sergeant? Really, Sergeant?
Sorry. It's taking a long time, much more than 1 hour to do this.
Hello. What's the poor man trying to do? Break the Albanian speed typing record?
He picks up a couple of letters at random and starts to read them. We notice that her hands, too, are large.
He is trying to prove an alibi, madame.
Whose? Kenneth Marshall's? If his wife was wealthy, he certainly needs one, poor love. Was she wealthy, by the way?
It appears so, but why do you ask that?
Well, look at these letters. Sponda looks wise. He appears to be up Shit Creek without a paddle.
Pardon? Qu'est-ce que c'est cette Sheet Creek?
I think Mrs. Castle means to imply that Captain Marshall is in a financial difficulties.
Mais oui, that he has already told us.
Still, Ken never cared about money. I only hope you're satisfied with his alibi.
Certainement, we know these letters had to have been typed between 11 and 12 o'clock in the morning, the time of the murder.
He also claims one of the maids who was cleaning the rooms must have heard the sound of the typewriter.
Well, there it is. Ken certainly isn't clever enough to use the old gramophone record trick. You know, the one where the murderer records the sound of a typewriter, puts it on the gramophone and nips out and pops his wife while everyone thinks he's still in his room.
Poirot and Race give her the kind of looks they would bestow on a mentally deficient child.
And of course, a gramophone does not actually type letters, madame.
Well, no more it does. Silly me.
Grace sighs and gives his attention to the sergeant.
Well, you can pack it in now. The point's proved. Instead, I think you should take a little exercise.
Exercise.
I would like you to time how long it takes to get from the spot at Blood Bay where the body was found from various points on the island, running both ways.
Running, sir?
Oui, like the miraculous Jesse Owens.
I don't think that's at all a good idea. In this heat, you'll give the poor man a heart attack and we'll have 2 corpses on our hands. Besides, I have all the timings you want.
You have all the timings.
Come on, I'll show you.
He leads them into the hotel as the sergeant makes a prayerful gesture that she has what they want. Interior, small conservatory, afternoon. Watched by Race and Poirot, Daphne Castle lifts the tarpaulin off a bulky object standing in the center of the conservatory to reveal a scale model of the island, beautifully worked in colored plaster. It shows the bays, paths, harbor, lighthouse, chapel, and hotel, all named with little flags showing the times to various places sticking up all over it.
There you are. An old chum of mine did this a couple of years ago when he had a little trouble paying his bill. But be careful of it. It's worth its weight in caviar.
And these are our walking times?
Slouching times, I'd have said. I mean 50 minutes from the point of the island. If you jogged all the way, you could do it in half the time.
Then let us do that. Half 50 minutes is 25, so that's 25 minutes from the hotel to the point. 7 minutes to Cutlass Cove, 8 minutes to Bounty Beach, 10 minutes to Blood Bay, 7 minutes to Lighthouse Ledge, from the ledge to the bay, 5 minutes, from the beach to the bay, 12 minutes, and from the bay to Cutlass Cove, 4 minutes.
Astounding mental arithmetic, cher Colonel. I stand amazed. And maintenant, I would like your sergeant to prepare more little flags for us with the names of the hotel guests on them to use with this superb model. It will greatly facilitate our inquiry.
I'll get him on it.
Monsieur Poirot, I don't wish to be seeming to teach my grandmother to suck eggs or anything, but I've changed my mind about the murderer. You see, I was reading a magazine story about a woman in Malaya who was drowned by a huge moray eel, which darted out of a hole and dragged her to the ocean floor, its teeth buried in her throat. And that gave me a new theory about the Brewster woman. Did you know, by the way, she was Arlena's secretary for years and was fired? Well, anyway, she could have been lurking in the water off Blood Bay when she appeared on the float thing and could have leapt up and pulled her off of it.
Alas, Madame Marshall was not drowned, madame. Still less was she not dead.
Well, I'll tell you what, she could have.
Mrs. Castle, forgive me, but as a matter of routine, I would like to know where you yourself was between 11 o'clock and 12 noon.
Me? But surely you can't think.
Please, Mrs. Castle, we have to check everyone.
Well, about 10:30, I went for a walk over to the Lighthouse Ledge, and I sat down there to make some notes for my staff meeting at 11:30.
Did you see anybody?
Well, as a matter of fact, I saw Arlena Marshall. She paddled by on a float.
Moving towards Blood Bay?
Yes.
Towards her death?
I suppose so. But it had nothing to do with me. About a half hour later, I returned to the hotel for my meeting.
Can anyone vouch for you?
Of course, practically the whole staff can, from after 11:30, that is. You see, once a week, it is my custom to collect all of them together to give them a collective boot up the bum. It does them no end of good. Keeps them up to stuff, as my old papa used to say.
But you could have followed Madame Marshall along the cliff top and been waiting in Blood Bay to strangle her when she arrived just after 11 o'clock. You would have had plenty of time to have returned here for the meeting at 11:30, n'est-ce pas?
What a simply suffocatingly absurd thing to say, Monsieur Poirot.
Is it? I've seen the way you look at Captain Marshall, madame, and it seems to me that both you and he share the same motive.
I'm afraid I don't follow your drift at all.
Vraiment? With Arlena out of the way, you two would be free to marry.
Me? Kill for love? Well, I must say it's very flattering of you to suggest it, but I'm afraid I'm far too much of a hardened old trollop for that. And as for Kenneth, he'd never do it in a million years. Why, he wouldn't even contemplate divorce when he must have known about every second man she met was throwing a leg over her.
Ah, but even the protector of lame ducks may change when he meets his childhood sweetheart again after 17 years and realizes he is still in love with her.
Monsieur Perrault, you have the Frenchman's obsession with the crime passion.
That is not so, madame, but if I had it, it would be the Belgium obsession.
For my part, Mrs. Castle, I should like to know what you did after the staff meeting was over.
Well, I had a date to play tennis at 12:15, so I got changed and breezed off to the court. When I got there, Kenneth Marshall hadn't arrived, but the others hadn't.
The others?
Well, Mr. Gardner and Mrs. Redfern.
And how did Captain Marshall's manners strike you?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
I want to know whether he was quite normal in his behavior, that's all. You know, fully composed.
I've never known Ken Marshall when he's not been fully composed as a Beethoven symphony.
Your answer is very amusing, madame, but this is a serious matter, and it is very important to us to know your impressions of the people you were playing tennis with. In other words, do you consider that any of them could have committed murder in the previous hour?
I'm sorry if I was flippant. In answer to your question, everybody appeared to me to be perfectly normal. I don't believe any one of them could have just strangled somebody.
Thank you, madame.
I believe Mr. Gardner was the next to arrive. How much behind you was he?
I'm not sure. Not long, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Mrs. Redfern was quite a bit later. She couldn't have been on court much before 12:30.
Who won the tennis, by the way?
Daphne Castle was as surprised by the question as Race.
What? Oh, they did. Mrs. R sure can hit the jolly old pill as if she hated it. If you ask me, those milk-white arms could mince the triceps of a 600-pound sumo wrestler.
Poirot has walked around to peer down a telescope mounted on a tripod, which is pointing out towards the harbor.
Ah, a sail.
We see through the telescope Mr. Blatt's sailing boat heading towards the island.
I think it might be our gallant Monsieur Blatt. I've been wondering where he's been all day. Let us go down and pipe him ashore. Au revoir, madame.
Poirot and Race head towards the foyer of the hotel.
Of course, I'd forgotten Mr. Blatt. He's obviously playing a double role with all his terrible jokes and everything. I wouldn't mind betting he's an old flame Arlena picked up years ago when she was playing Blackpool or Skegness or some other frightful seaside resort and got her hooks into and reduced to penury. He meets her here by chance and vows vengeance. He would find it quite easy to sail around the island, strangle her with one of those clever nautical knots, a bowline, a sheepshank, or whatever they're called.
Her voice trails off disconsolately as she realizes she's alone. Poirot and Race have left. Exterior, the harbor, evening. The time is now 7 o'clock. Bill, the boatman, is making fast Mr. Blatt's yawl for him. As Poirot and Race approach the two men, it becomes clear that he is telling a dirty story.
You see, this old fella, all bent over, goes into an ice cream parlor and says to the soda jerk, "Ice cream sundae, please?" He replies, "Crushed nuts, granddad?" And the old bloke says, "No, lad, it's rheumatism."
Laughs loudly and walks up the jetty toward Poirot and Race. Behind them, Bill shakes his head in baffled incomprehension.
"Hello, monsieur. Oh, Bill just told me about the murder. I would have to be out of my boat for the day and miss all the fun, wouldn't I? What a swizz."
This is Colonel Race, Monsieur Blatt. I don't think you will discover that he finds it quite as hilarious as you do.
Well, I didn't mean...
You say you went out sailing this morning. At what time, may I ask?
Oh, early. About 10 o'clock.
Was anyone with you?
Not a soul. I was all on my little Onio.
And where did you go?
Southwest. The wind was right behind me.
You didn't happen to approach Blood Bay at any time during the morning, did you?
that where the dark deed was done? No, I didn't go within miles of the place. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen anyone all day.
And that's all you can tell us?
Quite so. Not much use, I suppose.
Do you have any idea who could have done it?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? Cherchez le hobby.
Maybe so, yes. All we know for certain is that Madame Marshall had a secret rendezvous with someone at Bloodway this morning.
Yeah, that had to be Redfern. But why pick a draughty cove for a bit of nookie but eats me? Reminds me of the old one about the wife watching her old man coming out of the sea and saying to a friend, Fred goes all blue and stiff when he's been in the water. Not that I worry about the color.
Once again, Mr. Black cracks up laughing. Poirot regards him quizzically, Race coldly.
It wasn't Mr. Redfern. We know that for a fact. It was somebody else. A blackmailer, for example.
Blackmailer? What do you mean?
We believe she was being blackmailed by a man.
Well, don't look at me. That's not my handwriting.
How do you make your money, monsieur?
It's all perfectly legit. I'm in what you might call seaside novelties. You know, tricks, puzzles, salty hats, and picture postcards.
Quelle surprise.
Listen, if it wasn't Redfern and it wasn't Marshall, I'll bet I know who it was. Has to be. She said she was going to do it. Don't you remember? You were with me on the beach yesterday morning when she ran past.
You mean Mademoiselle Linda? Vraiment, she certainly did threaten to kill her stepmother. But she is so young.
There's no such thing these days. You mark my words, she's the one.
Interior, Arlena Marshall's bedroom. Evening, a close-up of a pile of frilly underwear. We see the maid, Gladys Norricott, sorting them out and tidying them away. Poirot and Race appear in the doorway.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, Lord, you startled me.
Sorry, is your name Gladys Narracott?
Yes, that's me. I was just putting away some of Miss Marshall's things. I must say her smalls are frilly.
Ah, yes, the formy kaminikers, swirling half-seen beneath the dramatically severe lines of Dessous. Extraordinaire.
Gladys Norricott gives Poirot a sharp, suspicious look, and snatching the lingerie away from him, starts to pack it into the wardrobe.
Was there something, sir?
I understand that you were on duty on this floor between 11 and 12 o'clock this morning?
Not after 11:30, I wasn't. I had to go to a staff meeting, didn't I?
Well, before you left for your meeting, did you hear the sound of a typewriter coming from Captain Marshall's bedroom?
Yes, I heard him typing away, quite steady.
Poirot's gaze travels to a huge array of cosmetic bottles lined up on the dressing table. Identifiable, but not over prominent, is a bottle of perfume labeled Soufflé de Mer.
Now, I want you to take a look at these bottles. Can you tell me if any are missing?
Lord, sir, you have to have the memory of an elephant to be able to tell that.
What about the other rooms, where I presume there are somewhat fewer bottles?
I can't say. I noticed nothing. What kind of bottle might it be?
Yes, that I cannot tell you. And maintenant, one last thing I want you to cast about in your mind to see if anything odd that you can remember as having happened this morning, which you might have noticed and forgotten to tell us.
Odd, sir?
Yes, Gladys, odd, unusual, out of place, different to the normal run of things.
Well, there was one thing, though it was nothing really. Just someone having a bath a bit after 12 o'clock. I mean, that's odd or unusual, ain't it? Most people have baths in the early morning or in the evening, but not in the middle of the day.
Who had this bath?
I really couldn't say. I just heard it going down the waist, that's all.
You're sure it was a bath, not one of the hand basins?
Quite sure. I mean, you can't mistake bath for running away. Now, can ya? It makes a kind of gurgling sound.
Like someone choking?
Sorta, yeah.
Or being strangled?
Daphne Castle appears in the doorway.
You get on with your work, Gladys. You're not paid to gawp.
Gladys Norricott hurries out.
Oh, it's you, Monsieur Barreau.
À votre service, madame.
I'm afraid it's no use questioning Gladys about anything. She's as dense as dough.
I have not found that so, madame.
Really? Well, have you arrested anyone yet? I told you who it was.
Your charge of murder has so far been somewhat extensive.
Has it? Well, I can't stop now and sort it out for you. I've simply got to keep an eye on Andrea. He's making curry du poulet Vandeloos for dinner, and the last time he cooked it, it was so hot we practically had to call the fire brigade from the mainland. Arrivederci, as they say in Ireland.
Au revoir encore, madame.
He bustles out. Reese and Poirot follow shortly.
She's quite potty. She'll be accusing us next.
Do not disturb yourself about Madame Castle, mon vieux. Order and method will prevail.
Well, I certainly hope so. But then, why all these irrelevant questions of yours about baths and bottles?
There is nothing irreverent about my questions, je vous assure. They are intimately the most logical. If you have an empty bottle on your dressing table or in your bathroom, what do you do with it? Do you drop it in the waste paper basket, or do you go to the trouble of going out onto your balcony and hurling it into the sea?
I see what you mean. You would only do that if you want to be connected with it. If you didn't want to be connected with it.
Exactement.
And the bath. What is so strange about the bath?
The time. A little after 12 o'clock. Consider which of the guests were in the hotel at that hour. Madame Redfern, Michelle Gardner, Madame Castle, Captain Marshall. They were all about to play tennis. A curious time to choose to take a bath, n'est-ce pas? See you at déjeuner.
Poirot heads off to his room to change for dinner, leaving Race looking thoughtful. The interior, the dining room of the hotel. Night. All the guests are seated at the table eating the curried chicken, the waiters in attendance.
By George, this is hot, but absolutely super.
You're right. It's hotter than a night in a Mexican whorehouse.
The others ignore him.
I hope you're not going to be ill, Odell. Like poor Mrs. Oschensteiner, Boltz's daughter Sadie. Do you remember how she was when she ate those hot chilies in Albuquerque?
Dear, I thought it was gazpacho in Mexico City.
It was hot chilies in Albuquerque, and all night long she was up and down to the John, which was about half a mile away.
Are you sure it wasn't an earth closet, Mrs. Gardner?
Could I please have a glass of iced water?
Kenneth has a thought.
Good idea for me too. Please, about a gallon.
Mesdames, Messieurs, talking of water, I would like to disturb you all from the excellence of your dinner for a moment by asking you just one simple question, which may have some bearing on our murder. Did any of you have a bath this morning about midday or a few minutes later?
No.
Voila, another little mystery to torture the logical mind. A bath poured out, which no one will admit to taking. Please continue to consume the dish of incomparable Andrea and leave to my little gray cells the elucidation of the puzzle why cleanliness is not next to truthfulness.
Taps his forehead and resumes his seat as we fade to black. Exterior, top of cliff above Blood Bay, cliff ladder. Midday. Race is finished strapping an apprehensive Poirot into a bosun's chair on the cliff top. He crosses himself devoutly as he is swung out over the side of the cliff and lowered by the sergeant. Race himself descends into the bay by the iron ladder clamped to the cliff face, enjoying as he does so the grotesque sight of his colleagues swinging around in the air above his head like a helpless whale.
Ma foi, quelle vie de bohème!
What's that you say?
I said, my liver, what a life of a bohemian.
I wouldn't be worrying about bohemians if I were you. At this moment, I'd just hang on tight.
Poirot looks down and nearly faints with terror at the sheer drop below his dangling feet.
Quelle horror! Don't look down, Race.
He flies through the air with the greatest of ease. The daring breaks the Belgian, the flying trapeze.
Et c'est bien un peu tout cela.
Maurice leaps off the ladder and is in time to catch the wildly gyrating Poirot and release him from his harness.
Well done, Poirot. That should have juiced up the little gray cells for you.
They have not been juiced. They have been paralyzed.
Poirot recovers himself enough to take an interest in his surroundings. As the sergeant descends the iron ladder, he walks over to the taped outline figure. The green Chinese hat lies over the spot where the face would be, and the white bathing costume is spread out over the trunk of the body. He studies it intently. Behind him, the sergeant picks up a couple of objects from the beach.
I found these on the sand.
He holds out a pair of scissors and a pipe stem.
Right. Hang on to them, will you? Do you think they're significant?
Mais oui, as significant as a wristwatch, a bathing cap, a bottle, a bath, and the chapel bell.
On the chapel, round the corner in Bible Bay, sounds 12 o'clock faintly.
And the chapel bell. Bon, it is precisely the same time as yesterday when the body was discovered.
Patrick Redfern rows the boat with Miss Brewster in the stern, round the point and in towards the shore. Patrick Redfern jumps out and runs up the beach.
Well done. You're precisely on time. Now, remember, you are to do exactly as you did before.
I shouted to her, I think.
Good. Well, off you go.
Arlena! Arlena! Hi there.
Patrick Redfern runs up the beach, waving and shouting.
Hi there, Arlena.
He reaches the figure and kneels down beside it.
Hey, wake up.
He touches one of the outlying limbs and then sharply pulls his hand away as if stung. He lifts the hat off the face.
My God.
What's the matter?
She's dead. She's been murdered, strangled.
Drops the hat and runs down to Miss Brewster, who is sitting in the boat, holding the oars.
Are you sure? How horrible.
Who could have done this to Arlena? It's just not possible.
Patrick Redfern looks at Poirot, who has been watching the reconstruction with great attention.
We stayed like this for a minute or so. You see, we were shocked. We didn't know what to do. Then, in case the murderer was still hanging about, I volunteered to stay with the body while Miss Brewster went to fetch the police. I touched nothing other than to make sure she was dead.
And I rode away back to the hotel. I couldn't cope with that ladder, you see.
I quite sympathize, mademoiselle.
Poirot walks thoughtfully about, examining the cliffs. Suddenly, he stops.
Come here, Colonel. Look at these.
Grace joins Poirot and sees what Poirot has found, a narrow gape in the cliff face. They squeeze through it. Interior, cave. Grace and Poirot stand in the cave. It is faintly lit.
The air is quite fresh.
Indeed, it smells of le souffle de mer.
What's that?
The breath of the sea.
Very poetic.
The two men look about them, examining the cave in detail. Suddenly, Poirot looks at a shelf high above his head.
One might perhaps see that there is nothing up there.
Grace stretches up a long arm, but he is still too short for an effective search by about a foot. Somehow he precariously manages a toehold in the cave wall, and hoisting himself up is now able to investigate the shelf properly. Suddenly, he whistles and descends abruptly. In his hands is a tin box labeled sandwiches.
Ah, picnic box.
A curious place to hide the egg and cress sandwiches, would you not say, mon vieux?
Grace opens the box. We see that the various compartments labeled salt, pepper, and mustard are all full of what looks like salt. Grace wets a finger and tastes some.
Good God, Pro, heroin. So my information was correct. What a lucky break. The fellow I've been looking for is obviously using this place as a drop or a catch.
What a fortunate find, mon cher. Now, all you have to do is have a watch kept and you will soon know who it is.
Exactly. It'll give that idle sergeant of mine something to do.
Grace puts the sandwich box back where he found it.
You know, I've been thinking. It could be that Mrs. Marshall was an addict and came here yesterday morning to meet her supplier.
No. It is not possible. She had steady nerves and radiant health. But of course, there is always the possibility that she discovered this business accidentally and was silenced. Allons, let us return to the hotel.
Exterior. Blood Bay, midday. Poirot and Race emerge from the scene. Poirot looks first at the bosun's harness and then at the boat. Each object draws a shudder from him.
Alas, I stand between the Cilia of Vertigo and the Charybdis of Mal de Mer. It is true that one does not die of Mal de Mer, whereas another journey in that infernal machine might well induce un crise de nerfs from which I would never recover. Would you permit me, monsieur, to prevail upon Mademoiselle Brewster for your place in her boat?
Please go ahead. I'll use the ladder.
You are too amiable.
Redfern gives Poirot a dazzling smile and walks away across the beach towards the ladder. He is followed by Race. Poirot, meanwhile, walks apprehensively down the beach toward the boat in the company of Miss Brewster.
All you have to do is to hop in, Monsieur Perrault, and leave everything to me.
Gingerly, he complies with her suggestion. As soon as he is settled, she casts off and jumps into the boat, making it lurch sickeningly. As Poirot groans unhappily, she bends to the oars. Back on the beach, the sergeant conceals himself unhappily behind a rock. Interior, conservatory, day. We see Poirot leaning over the model of Bloody Bay. He places a marker with Arlene Marshall's name on it. In the middle of it, Grace stands watching.
Now, from my own unhappy experience, I know it takes about 25 minutes to row from Booty Beach to Blood Bay. So it is clear Madame Marshall arrived there at approximately 5 minutes past 11. Between then and 12 o'clock, she was murdered. Let us see where everybody claims to have been during those 55 minutes. Captain Marshall was in his room typing. Monsieur and Madame Gardner were on Booty Beach until 11:40, when Monsieur Gardner returned to the hotel, leaving his wife alone. Monsieur Redfern was on Booty Beach until he left with Mademoiselle Brewster to go for a row a little before 11:30. Mademoiselle Brewster herself arrived at Booty Beach about 11:20 after exercising in her room. Madame Castle was at Lighthouse Ledge until she returned for her staff meeting there at the hotel at 11:30. Madame Redfern and Mademoiselle Marshall were here at Cutler's Cove until 12 o'clock. When Madame Redfern left to go back to the hotel, leaving Mademoiselle Linda alone. Finally, Monsieur Blatt was out here sailing in a southwesterly direction. Now, what does that tell us?
That the only people with watertight alibis are Captain Marshall with his hours typing, Mr. Redfern, who is either in your sight or Mrs. Brewster's, and Mrs. Redfern and Linda Marshall, who can vouch for each other.
Exactement. And nearly everybody had a motive for killing her.
The exception being Mr. Blatt.
And even he may not be the innocent man he seems to be very nervous.
Poirot, I must confess to you that I find the whole case most baffling. Have you any idea who it is?
I know who it should be. As I told you before, this is a very slick crime. Something tells me it is not a first attempt.
I'm not sure I follow you.
Come, let us take a little promenade and I will explain.
Exterior, Bible Bay, day. Poirot and Race walk down the promontory to the Fisherman's Chapel.
I must tell you that earlier this year, I was retained by the Trojan Insurance Company to investigate a case of strangulation which the police were satisfied was the work of a madman or tramp, and not of the obvious suspect, the husband who benefited from the insurance policy. I read the documents and decided it was useless to investigate because the husband had an obviously cast iron alibi, being on a train miles away at the time of the murder. Now, suddenly, I am not so sure that, incredible as it may seem, I, Hercule Poirot, did not make the bad mistake.
Come on, Poirot. You mustn't reproach yourself. We all make mistakes.
Not me.
Oh, really, Poirot? Sometimes you're impossible.
They enter the chapel with Race laughing and Poirot affronted. Interior, the Seamen's Chapel, Bible Bay, day. The interior of the chapel is small and ancient, carved out of stone and crossed with rough wooden tiles. Across, Poirot watches as the still chuckling Race stops to examine a screen, illustrating the parable of the talents made out of shells.
Ah, the parable of the talents. I'm sure you have always believed that unto everyone hath shall be given, from him who hath not shall be taken away. Haven't you, mon cher Colonel?
Have I, Poirot?
Mais naturellement. Surely you have always known that to he who doesn't inquire, nothing shall be revealed. For example, you should inquire about the insurance company case has to do with this one, instead of lacking like the jackass.
I'm sorry, Poirot. I really am. Perhaps you're being good to explain.
Can't you see that they share the same pattern? The cold-blooded plotting, the strangulation, the cast-iron alibi of the husband. Mon Dieu, I want you to do something for me. I want you to get me photographs of all the witnesses in that case. The husband, the hiker who found the body, the photographs of everybody who was interviewed. The name of the murdered woman was Alice Corrigan. Her husband's name, I think, was Edward, and the crime took place near Ilkley, Yorkshire.
Well, that shouldn't be too difficult. The police probably won't have any photographs, but the local press would almost certainly have taken some at the inquest.
Good. I would also like to have a report about the financial affairs of the murdered woman.
I don't think I'll be able to get you any of this information before tomorrow evening, I'm afraid.
Do not distress yourself, mon cher. While we wait, we shall amuse ourselves.
Amuse ourselves?
Absolument. We shall have un grand pique-nique.
Race stares at Poirot in astonishment as the chapel bell strikes the hour. Exterior, open countryside, afternoon. Daphne Castle and Poirot lead the way through open countryside. They are followed by servants in uniform carrying hampers. Behind them come the guests, Mr. and Mrs. Gardner, Miss Brewster, Mr. and Mrs. Redfern, Kenneth and Linda Marshall. Mr. Black walks at the rear by himself. Procession moves into more thickly wooded countryside. Exterior, glade with stream. Afternoon. The procession of guests and servants enter a wooded glade through which runs a stream, and over which is a narrow wooden bridge. Poirot spreads his arms wide and indicates he is satisfied with the venue.
Voilà, mesdames, messieurs, a perfect place for le déjeuner sur l'herbe.
I suppose Andrea's splendid goose pie might as well be ravished by ants here as elsewhere, and me too, for that matter.
Do you remember, Odell, when we were given those reindeer marrow bones at Modesty Trumpensmobbles home in Pittsburgh.
I thought they were elk bones, dear.
They were reindeer bones and they were charred black. I remember particularly because there wasn't a thing to eat on them. No wonder she keeps her figure.
Well, I'm not going to worry about my figure today, Daddy. I'm going to gorge myself silly.
Quite right, darling. I'm sure that Daphne would be offended if you didn't.
If Marshall and Daphne Castle exchange meaningful glances. The guests spread out and the servants start to unpack the hampers, supervised by Daphne Castle. Exterior, laid with stream, late afternoon. It is a couple of hours later. Many of the company are asleep or resting in their previous groupings. The servants are packing up the plates and cutlery. Poirot has crossed the river and is sitting comfortably replete beneath a tree. He yawns, stretches, and suddenly gets to his feet as his attention is caught by a large spread of datura. He next sees Christine Redford walking on the other side of the river and calls to her.
Ah, Madame Redfern, come and look at these flowers. Ils sont très extraordinaires.
Christine Redford runs across the wooden bridge. She joins Poirot and Patrick Redfern and examines the flowers.
Oh, they're very pretty.
And pretty deadly, madame.
Really? What are they?
Les trompettes de la mort.
The trumpets of death?
Exactement, monsieur. Datura, a highly toxic solanaceous plant. Paralysis and death occur within quite astounding swiftness. Yes, all in all, a most lethal weapon.
Christine Redfern, who has been about to touch the flowers, draws back her hand sharply.
And a most successful picnic, don't you think?
Oh, yes, very. Even though there's a murderer walking about loose among us.
Not for very much longer, monsieur. Croyez-moi.
The camera moves to a close-up of the datura flowers. Exterior, Keel Hall Caves. Evening. Poirot walks about, deep in thought, amongst the jumble of rocky caverns which form Keel Hall Caves. Suddenly, he is hailed by Race, who comes hurrying across the shingle towards him.
Ah, Perot, I've been looking all over for you.
Sometimes it is necessary to repose the mind in solitude. One must not blame the little gray cells for their moments of misanthropy.
Well, did you have a good picnic?
It was most illuminating, and in a certain way, quite surprising.
Really? In what way, may one ask?
Gastronomically, the goose pie was marvelous. Have you seen any news?
Yes. Whilst you've been surprising your stomach, I've been finding out about Mrs. Marshall's financial affairs. In a nutshell, her bank told me that out of the £100,000 left to her last year, she has drawn out in cash amounts all but 8,000. To my mind, this certainly confirms the blackmail story.
Ah, ça c'est très intéressant. And the photographs, when may I expect them?
I should have them tomorrow morning. They'll be radioed to Tyrone and then brought here.
Well, I am convinced that they will prove my case.
So now you know who it is?
Yes, I know. Well?
Well, who?
I do not like to speak until I have the proof.
How about a clue then?
Mais certainement. It is not, as you might expect from your study of detective fiction, the least likely person. Au contraire, it is the most likely person.
Exterior, Blood Bay, night. Shadowy figure climbs down the cliff ladder at Blood Bay and crosses the stretch of sand to the concealed entrance to the cave. It slips inside. Interior, cave, night. In the dim light, the figure crosses to the shelf and, making use of the toe hole in the cave wall, reaches up and searches the shelf. Two powerful police torches suddenly stab out of the darkness and light up Mr. Blatt as he grasps the sandwich box.
Bonsoir, Monsieur Blatt. Have you come here to tell us one of your so amusing stories?
Wait, listen.
What's it to be this time? Something spicy about dope running?
All right. It's a fair cop, but how you found out beats me.
If it's any consolation to you, it was a bit of luck, really. We do get them every so often, you know.
Moi, I am always interested in the activities of lone sailors, particularly ones who are fascinated by pirates and smuggling.
Me and my big mouth. Well, at least you can't hang me for it.
Pourquoi pas? It gives you a good motive for murdering Madame Marshall.
What?
You ran your stuff in here, she caught you at it, and threatened to blow the gaff, and you topped her.
Now look, Gunner, you can't pin murder on me. That's not my game. I swear I never even spoke to the lady, let alone laid a finger on her. You gotta believe me.
Believe the word of a heroin smuggler? Why should I? What do you think, Perot?
I think you should hold him here until tomorrow, when we shall all be revealed, when all shall be revealed. Meanwhile, even an Hercule Poirot becomes fatigué. So perhaps you would be so amiable as to row me back to the hotel, which is much stateliness as you can command.
Interior, the residence lounge of the hotel, mid-morning. All of the suspects sit in a large semicircle around the room. Behind Mr. Blatt stands the sergeant. There is a general excited buzz of conversation, which is suddenly stilled as Hercule Poirot enters the room and takes his place in the center, standing before the model of Smuggler's Island.
Mesdames, Monsieur, I have asked you all to meet me here this morning because I have discovered the identity of the murderer of Madame Marshall. It is at the moment only a theory, but one which I am quite sure is the correct one. However, thanks to the good offices of my dear colleague, Colonel Race, I am hoping that the certain proofs will arrive shortly, which will put the matter beyond doubt. Meanwhile, I shall, with your kind permission, offer you Hercule Poirot's solution. Eh bien, let us begin with the reconstruction of the events at Blood Bay at the time of the murder. I visited the scene.
To Blood Bay on the model.
I visited the scene of the crime at 12 noon the following day, which is to say, the same time the body was discovered. I was struck at once by one very interesting fact. Madame Marshall had obviously been lying in the sun, shade, and yet, as I learned from the reconstruction, her face had been covered by her great big green Chinese hat. Why? I asked myself, was her face shielded from a non-existent sun? There could be only one answer. The murderer had wanted it concealed.
Grace enters holding an envelope, which he waves up front of Leah Poirot. They nod at each other.
But why, mes amis, had the murderer wanted it concealed?
He looks directly at Patrick Redfern, who stirs uneasily in his chair.
Why?
I think you know very well why, Monsieur Redfern.
What can you mean?
I mean that everyone here at this hotel had the opportunity to kill Madame Marshall, except for you and Madame Redfern. She hadn't got the opportunity because she was with Mademoiselle Linda at Cutlass Cove. And you hadn't got the opportunity since, as you correctly informed me, I was your alibi during the whole time until you left the harbor with Miss Brewster to roll around the island.
Well, there you are then. If we are the least suspicious of all the people here, then why should I know why the murderer wanted to conceal Elena's face with the hat?
Because the singular impossibility of you and your wife having done the crime convinces me beyond a doubt that you actually did it.
What? Is it daft you are?
No, I don't think so, Monsieur Redfern. It is my belief that Elena Marshall went to Blood Bay to meet you, and that she did meet you, and that you killed her there as you planned to do.
You're completely mad. Do you mind telling me how I did it then?
Hercule Poirot is not to be fooled twice, mon petit assassin. You did it in the same way that you murdered Alice Corrigan at a likely earlier this year, and with the able assistance of your wife or partner, Christine, who helped you here in the same way as she helped you then by pretending to discover the body of Alice Corrigan at least 20 minutes before Alice Corrigan actually died, and while you were still on the train.
Lies, all bloody lies.
Calm yourself, Patrick. As he said himself, he can't prove anything. It's only a theory.
What about this proof of his? What about that now?
Don't let him fool you. He just said that to get you to talk. Can't you see that?
Quite right, girl. Let him blather away. Pray continue, Monsieur Poirot.
Merci. Vous êtes trop gentil. Let me say at once that the crime depended on the character of Madame Marshall. From the start, I saw she was the archetypical victim. It wasn't she who fatally attracted men. It was men like you who fatally attracted her. An adventurer, a man of good looks and easy assurance who makes his living out of women and often ends up killing them. In other words, you were the most likely suspect.
Now that's enough.
Patrick.
I have no doubt in my mind, Monsieur Redfern, that you found it quite easy to get Arlena Marshall to hand you large sums of money from time to time for investment. That was how she lost her money, wasn't it? There was no blackmailer, nor never was. He was a pure invention of your wife's to account for Arlena's depleted bank account.
Patrick and Christine Redfern exchange uneasy glances.
If anything at all of what you're saying were true, do you mind telling me why on earth I should kill her? Presumably there would have been plenty more where that came from.
No, not so, mon ami. There was very little left. And it wasn't going to be very long before her husband was going to start asking awkward questions about who swindled her. She would have told him, so you had to kill her before, you had to kill her in order to avoid a long spell in jail, n'est-ce pas?
It's a tale for the little people, Monsieur Poirot. Why don't you show me how I did it if you're that clever?
As I say, you did it with the aid of this woman here, who may or may not be your wife. From the moment you came here, both of you played out a series of carefully rehearsed scenes in such a manner that all might bear or see. Together, there were scenes of hysterical jealousy, boomed out through open windows. Apart from you, madam, you, madam, took every opportunity to give the impression that you were a physically frail woman who was absolutely terrified of heights and who had to hide her skin away from the sun because it blistered and made her look like an Italian ice cream. Christine is altogether to be pitied as a poor little helpless abandoned wife. Whilst you, monsieur, took elaborately and discreet plans to advertise your romance by virtually shouting declarations of love instead of whispering sweet nothings and pacing moodily about like a sulky lovelorn poet. But as I say, I was convinced the pair of you were play acting, and I was determined to prove it by finding you, madame, out in a perfectly obvious lie. To this, I arranged a picnic, and during the course of it, indeed induced you to cross a narrow bridge over running water, which I had previously selected. If it were true that you had a bad head for heights, you would have had a great difficulty crossing that bridge. Madam, I must tell you, I saw no difficulty.
Well, that means nothing. I was in a hurry and probably didn't notice.
If your affliction had been genuine, you could not have helped taking notice, but it was not. And I knew you were lying about it, and I also knew why.
Well, then why, for God's sake?
If you only have patience, madame, I will now describe to you what you both did. Now, Monsieur Redfern, the first move you made on the beach on the day previous to the murder, you arranged a clandestine meeting with Elena Marshall in Blood Bay for the following day. She was to go round the bay early. Nobody went there in the morning when it was in shade. And you were to join her there as soon as you could slip away undetected. You told her that if, while she was waiting for you, she heard someone descending the ladder or a boat came in sight, she was to slip into the cave.
Flashback. Exterior, early morning, southeastern side of the hotel. Patrick Redfern creeps furtively out of the hotel, using the outside staircase. He's wearing a bathing wrap, under which he is holding something bulky. He runs off in the direction of Blood Bay.
You left the hotel early in the morning and ran over to Blood Bay. Under your bathing wrap, you had concealed a green Chinese hat, the duplicate of the one Elena Marshall was in the habit of wearing.
Patrick Redfern climbs the ladder into the cove. He then takes the Chinese hat from under his wrap and conceals it behind a rock and climbs up the ladder.
You climbed down the ladder and stowed it away in an appropriate place out of sight before returning to the hotel. In the meantime, Madame Christine had gone to Linda Marshall's room.
Flashback. Linda Marshall's bedroom, morning. Christine Redfern enters Linda Marshall's bedroom and alters her wristwatch, putting it 15 minutes forward.
And advanced her wristwatch by 15 minutes.
Linda Marshall enters the room and discovers her.
Then you arranged the expedition to Cutlass Cove and returned to your own room, where you carefully stained your vaunted white arms and legs with dark suntan and then threw the incriminating bottle out of the window, where it narrowly escaped, hitting Mademoiselle Brewster, who was bathing. You then put yourself in a white bathing costume. Oh.
Interior of the Redfern's bedroom, morning. Christine Redfern is putting on a white bathing suit, similar to Arlena Marshall's. Over it, she puts on a pair of beach pajamas.
You then dressed yourself in a white bathing costume, similar to the one worn by Marlena Marshall, and over it, a pair of garish beach pajamas with long, floppy sleeves and a high neck, which effectively concealed your newly browned limbs and chest. You then went off to Cutlass Cove with Linda while I made my way to Booty Beach.
Flashback. Exterior, Booty Beach, morning. Flashback to scene where Arlene Marshall paddles away on her float to where Patrick Redfern arrives and looks about him, puzzled and impatient.
At about 11:40, Madame Marshall departed for her rendezvous, and a minute or two later, you, Monsieur Redfern, appeared. And after some laboriously comic remarks about my suede shoes, you set about registering baffled impatience. Now, mes amis, the scene moves to Cutlass Cove.
Exterior, Cutlass Cove, midday. Linda Marshall rises and Christine Redfern asks the time. Linda Marshall enters the sea, and this time we see Christine Redfern picking up Linda Marshall's watch, which she has taken off before swimming.
At 11:45, and keeping her own watch concealed, Madame Christine asked Linda the time. Naturally, Linda said it was 12 o'clock. Then she starts to go down to the sea. While her back is turned, Madame Christine returns the watch to the correct time. Then she calls Linda back, telling her she has forgotten her bathing cap. Why should she bother to do that, you may ask? The answer is simple. On top of the Fisherman's Chapel is Bible Bay, where there is a bell. 15 minutes later, it was due to strike the hour, and if Linda heard it, the game would be up. True, as I knew 15, I lost it. True, as I knew from Mr. Blatt's evidence, that the wind was southwest and therefore blowing away from her. But Madame Christine could take no chances of the sound carrying a girl splashing about in the sea and wearing a bathing cap would hear nothing. Now, she hurries.
Flashback, exterior, path. Christine Redfern runs as fast as she can along the path.
Now, she hurries from the cove and over the path which separates Cutlass Cove from Blood Bay. This takes her about 4 minutes. Then she strips off her beach pajamas and hides them and her sketching things behind a big rock which is there and climbs athletically down the ladder.
Exterior, Blood Bay, midday. Helena Marshall is on the beach. She sees Christine Redfern descending the ladder.
Shit.
She runs into the cave.
Helena Marshall is on the beach wondering why you, Monsieur Redfern, are taking so long to come. Suddenly, to her great chagrin, she sees you, madame, coming down the ladder. Only her husband could have presented a more inconvenient figure. Of course, she is forced to take refuge in the cave.
Christine Redfern takes the green Chinese hat from its hiding place behind the rock, pulls out a false red curl from inside it, and lies down on the beach above the water line. She then arranges the hat over her face so that it is hidden and the curl shows to advantage.
Then all you had to do was to take the green Chinese hat, which I suspect a false red curl pinned underneath the brim at the back, from where your partner had hidden it earlier in the morning, and dispose yourself in a sprawling attitude with the hat and curl shielding your face and neck. All this has taken you at the very most a further 5 minutes. The timing is perfect. A few minutes later, the church bell strikes 12 o'clock, and the boat containing Mademoiselle Brewster, Monsieur Redfern, comes around the point.
We see the boat containing Miss Brewster and Patrick Redfern come around the point. Patrick Redfern jumps out, runs up the beach, waving and shouting, and kneels down beside the body. He lifts the hat off her face. Christine Redfern winks up at Patrick. He grins broadly before replacing the hat and starting his dialogue with Miss Brewster.
It is, of course, Monsieur Redfern who runs up the beach, who bends down to examine the body. It is he who is stunned, shocked, broken by the death of his lover. All Mademoiselle Brewster has seen was a body, with suntanned limbs, wearing a white bathing costume and Helena's hat. Do you remember what I said the first day we met, Mademoiselle? All bodies lying on the beach are alike. They are not men and women. There is nothing personal about them. They are like rows of butcher's meat grilling in the sun. And it's true. One moderately well-made young woman is very much like another. 2 brown arms, 2 brown legs, and a little piece of bathing suit in between.
Miss Brewster starts to row off back to the hotel.
Now, no wonder you were fooled into imagining that you had seen the corpse of Madame Marshall, when what you had actually seen was the live body of Madame Christine Redfern. That was why the murderer had to conceal the face, because it was not the murder victim lying there, but somebody else. And who else would help Monsieur Redfern but his own partner or wife? Yes, the crime had the same pattern as the Corrigan murder, with the victim being killed later than everyone thought possible. And now the performance by the witness, Miss Brewster, is over. She has been chosen well. She is not a good head for heights, so will not attempt to climb up the ladder. She will leave the bay by boat, taking the long way back for help, and leaving Monsieur Redfern to remain with the body in case the murderer was still hanging around. Now, what do you think happened, Mademoiselle Brewster, as soon as you disappeared?
As soon as the boat is out of sight, Christine Redfern jumps up and cuts the hat into pieces with a pair of scissors, which she drops in her haste. She then fills the brassiere of her bathing suit with pieces of cardboard. Quickly, she kisses Patrick, then turns, runs across to the ladder, swarms up it, and disappears. Patrick Redfern tosses a broken pipe stem down on the beach.
Madame Christine jumps to her feet, cuts up the green cardboard into pieces she can conveniently stuff into her bathing costume, and swarms up the ladder. The only clues they leave for us are a pair of scissors, which I'm sure she dropped unintentionally, and the pipe stem of Captain Marshall's pipe, which they put there in the hope that it would incriminate him.
On the cliff top, Christine Redfern puts on her beach pajamas, gathers up her sketching materials, waves gaily to Patrick below, and runs off.
On the cliff top, she slips back into her beach pajamas, gathers up her sketching things, and runs back to the hotel as fast as she can, where she is seen arriving between 12:10 and 12:15 by Monsieur Gardner.
Flashback. Interior, Christine Redfern's bathroom, midday. Christine Redfern is briskly rubbing the suntan off her body in the bath. She dries herself quickly, flushes the piece of green cardboard and curl down the lavatory, and walks next door to change into tennis clothes.
Here she takes the bath that no one would admit to taking in order to wash off the suntan, flushes the pieces of green cardboard hat and the curl down the lavabo, and is ready for the tennis court. Late, it is true, but unruffled and unsmiling. But what meanwhile has been happening to her partner, Monsieur Patrick? Why, as soon as Madame Christine is out of sight, he runs over to the cave and calls Arlena's name. She emerges, leaving behind her the smell of her perfume, soufflé de mer, which I have seen on her dressing table in her bedroom, and the presence of which my excellent nose at once detected in the cave.
My God, you took an age.
I'm sorry, darling. It was difficult to slip away with your husband prowling about the place like a grizzly bear with a bad case of eczema. And then, of course, my damned wife had to turn up here.
Yes, I know. I saw her. She absolutely amazed me. She came down that ladder like Tarzan. What on earth was she doing here?
I don't know, but I sent her away with a flea in her ear. She won't be Mrs. Patrick Redfern for very much longer. That I can promise you.
Well, darling, I've been so lonely.
They kiss. Patrick Redfern's hands slip up her back and fasten round her neck in a sudden, deadly stranglehold. Her eyes bulge. Her tongue protrudes. Her face blackens. Slowly, she slips to the ground. Satisfied she is dead, Patrick Redfern picks her up and carries her over to where Christine Redfern had lain, and carefully arranges her limbs in the same position. Finally, he puts her green cardboard hat over her face, and with a self-satisfied smile, sits down to the police.
It is the end of poor, foolish, beautiful, easily beguiled Arlena Marshall. He then arranges her in the same position that his partner had occupied on the beach, then covers her face with the hat, and the curl of her red hair, sits down comfortably to await the arrival of the police. Voilà, mesdames, messieurs, l'histoire de meurtre de Madame Marshall.
He bows theatrically as if expecting applause. Patrick Redfern bounds to his feet, his eyes blazing.
You damned interfering, self-satisfied, froggy mountebank.
Un mountebank Belgique, monsieur, s'il vous plaît.
Where's your proof, then? Just answer me that. Where's your blasted proof?
I didn't want to interrupt you, Perot, while you were in full flow, so to speak, but this arrived while you were talking. It's from Ilkley, Yorkshire.
He takes the photograph from the envelope and hands it over. We see that it is a reproduction of a newspaper article with the headline, brutal murder on the moors. Beneath are two photographs. One is of Patrick Redfern and his caption, "The husband, Edward Corrigan." The other is of Christine Redfern and his caption, "The hiker." Poirot smiles happily.
The proof that will hang the pair of you.
Patrick Redfern and Christine Redfern both look at the paper.
And it'll kill you too.
With a murderous snarl, he throws himself on Poirot and fastens his fingers around his throat. Poirot's eyes bulge out of his head. He goes limp. Race and the sergeant finally manage to drag Patrick Redfern off Poirot, but it has taken time, and the camera tracks into an extreme close-up of his seemingly lifeless face. Exterior, the harbor, evening. Patrick, Christine Redford, and Horace Blatt sit handcuffed to policemen in a police launch. The sergeant helps Mrs. Brewster aboard, carrying her suitcase. She crosses to sit next to Mr. Blatt.
Ellie, your microphone's off.
Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry you turned out to be a wronging. From the way you handle that yawl of yours, I'd have thought you'd have been pretty good in a rowboat once you mastered the oars.
Reminds me of the one about the oarsman's wedding and the little nipper standing outside the church watching the happy couple and their entourage walk out from under the line of crossed blades and shouting to his mother, "Here, Mum, look at all them oars." And she belting them across the ear hole and saying, "Them ain't oars, silly, them's bridesmaids."
That's funny.
Takes his manacled hands in hers and gives him a comforting squeeze. He smiles at her gratefully, recognizing the first time that anyone has actually laughed at one of his jokes.
God bless you.
The camera pans up and zooms in on Race and Poirot sitting on the veranda above the terrace. Exterior, veranda, evening. Poirot reclines on a chaise lounge, his neck swathed in scars. He looks very sorry for himself. Race sits solicitously near him on a cane chair.
I must say again, Poirot, it was a masterly piece of detection, quite masterly.
And I say again, Sir Colonel, that your attempts to save me from the talons of Mr. Redfern were slower than a paralyzed tortoise. It is a miracle that I am here, a veritable miracle.
Oh, I don't think it's quite as serious as all that.
I tell you, there is nothing more serious than the life of
He looks down on the terrace below. Exterior, the terrace, day. Mr. and Mrs. Gardner cross the terrace, as usual, in dispute.
Now, let me try and explain it to you, Odell. Mrs. Corrigan was killed before the time her husband could possibly have been there.
No, my dear, I'm afraid you've got it wrong. It merely appeared that she was killed before the husband could have got there. Actually, like Mrs. Marshall, she was killed after the time when everyone thought she was dead.
Odell, I do hope you're not contradicting me. She was killed before the time her husband could have gotten there.
Damn it, woman. Yes, I am contradicting you. To say she was actually killed before the husband could have got there is to say that you don't understand anything of this whole damn business. Furthermore, it is my opinion that it is the view of a stupid, inane, empty-headed woman without a coherent thought and the whole of a foggy brain. In other words, Myra, you have a mind of the clarity and consistency of clam chowder.
Yes, dear. I'm sorry, dear. You're quite right, dear. She was killed after the time when everyone thought she was dead.
Mr. Gardner nods his head in satisfaction. They disappear around the corner, arm in arm. Exterior, the veranda. Poirot and Race sit together laughing.
Thus, mon cher, it is possible to say that there is reconciliation in all things, even murder.
Daphne Castle, carrying a covered dish, emerges from the hotel onto the terrace, accompanied by Kenneth Marshall and Linda Marshall.
I'll see you both for dinner, my darlings. I've just got to make sure that poor Monsieur Perrault is looked after properly.
He kisses them both and hurries up to Poirot and Race as the marshals wave to them and move off the other way.
Monsieur Perrault, I have brought you a dish specially prepared by Andrea to tempt an invalid. La crapaud en trop.
Tonio, are manageable.
She uncovers the dish.
Of course it is. It's a great English favorite. Spicy sausage, meat in a light batter. You don't think we eat amphibians like you people, do you? My God.
Ella, mon pauvre gorge will not allow me to consume it, madame.
Nonsense. Of course it will. I'll cut it up so even a baby could swallow it.
He tucks his napkin into the folds of his scarves and starts to cut up the dish. The boat hoots in the distance.
The boat is waiting, so I'll leave you to your delicious supper. Perrault? But let me just add that it has been an honor and a pleasure to work with you again.
And for me too, mon brave Colonel, au revoir.
Au revoir.
He stoops, holding out his hand. Poirot ignores the hand, but instead embraces him on both cheeks with loud smacking kisses. Race goes bright scarlet, chokes dramatically, and takes his leave. Poirot smiles brightly, broadly.
I can't really think why you're looking so pleased with yourself. I told you the Redferns did it all along.
Poirot's mouth drops open in astonishment and outrage, giving Daphne Castle the opportunity to ram a spoonful of toad in the hole in it. Exterior, the whole island. Evening. Aerial shot of Smuggler's Island basking peacefully in the last rays of the setting sun. Fades slowly to blackness.
Good job, everyone.
I had a lot of fun.
So fun.
Hey, we're getting better. We're like an hour ahead of where we've been for the last 3 weeks.
Buen trabajo. Buen trabajo.
Okay.
Guys, stop live streaming now, or do you want to wrap up?
Everyone's hearing our conversations.
They are. That's why I'm like, do you want me to stop it?
Well, thank you everyone for
For
watching.
some reason, I thought we had cut all of those things, and I'm like, oh hell. But